So I forgot we're recording.
This is more than I usually have in scripts for a whole episode. So go. Let's.
Sorry. God dang it.
How perfectly timed was that?
Sorry.
Oregano and tomatoes.
No, tomatoes.
Watermelon.
Watermelon. There's a T in there.
There is an R in there. Watermelon.
Watermelon.
Now, every time you try to do that, I'm just going to think of your American impression.
Oh, shit. Ivan's high on heroin. Anyway. And a spink. So that was a really discussion. Oh, my. Hear ye, come one and come all to episode 49 of the Plastic Posse podcast. We are ever so delighted to have you listening to us today, and I'm overcome with joy to be joined by my incredible co-hosts. Going from west to east, Sir Grant Mabry from the Golden State of California. We have Sir Scott Gentry, and joining us a little bit later on, Doug Smith from the Beehive State of Utah. Unfortunately, tonight we are a little short, so we don't have TJ and we do not have JB joining us. So unfortunately, that just leaves myself to introduce myself from the Rose County of Lancashire in England. How are you guys doing this evening?
Doing great. How are things in the land of aubergine?
They're doing really well. Just really busy at the minute. Just chaos. It's chaos. It's good chaos.
Productive chaos.
Very, yeah. I'm trying to get one project done, and then I get distracted by trying to improve an old project. But we'll get to that a little bit later.
How are you doing, Grant?
I'm good. Working really working hard, but I've got some paint on my Sherman, and I've got one more figure to finish, and then I can call it a day. So that's gonna be fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've got an extremely exciting Independence Day weekend planned. I'm going to be staining a fence. So there you go.
Wow. You have all the fun in Utah.
Party Central.
Crazy.
Wow. You can do like the Tom Sawyer and put the cutoff pants on, with the hat and...
Well, it is excellent to hear from everyone, both of you. Now we have a great episode planned ahead. By the time this episode drops, it'll be less than 2 weeks until the IPMS US National Model Show in Omaha, Nebraska, the Cornhusker State. We'll be focusing quite a bit on the Nats in this show and this episode, so stick around for that. We also have a great discussion point that JB brought up, but we'll be leading that discussion, as well as our usual pitter-patter of grey matter about all things scale models. So enough from me. What have you guys been working on since our last episode?
Like I said, I got some paint finally on my Israeli Sherman. It's looking, green, which is good. I've been working on some small figures from a 3D company called Mezgit. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. He's a Warhammer guy, does some really fantastic stuff. He's got a Patreon page, and you can join, and every month he'll send you STL files for a figure, and he shows you how to paint them. So it's been really fun. It's been really, really fun, having a good time working on some bases, trying to get cleaning up some old kits, cleaning up some new kits, and getting everything ready for nationals, getting ready to see Ivan for the first time and you against Scott and the rest of us, and just hoping Ivan brings enough chocolate, because, I am that chocolate guy that just has to destroy it all. What are you working on, Scott?
I've been working on my M10 for the group build. That should be ready. I still have final weathering and some things to do, but that's coming along really, really nicely. Pretty good on that. And then last weekend, I got to go up to the Pacific Northwest and hang out with our good friend Jim Bates from A Scale Canadian TV. He gave me one of the new Arma Hobby Expert Series P51 B and C kits, and wow, guys, I'll tell you, man, I might be swayed into this 72nd scale aircraft thing. This kit is a gorgeous, gorgeous little model. It's like somebody took a 48 scale kit and downsized it because, I mean, just the level of detail, photo etch seat belts, canopy masks, all in 172nd scale. Just a gorgeous little kit. Ivan, I know you've been very, very busy. What have you been working on?
Yes, so I've really, really been trying hard to get the A4 Skyhawk done for the Model Geeks. It's been my first aircraft for over a year or 2 years. It's been a while, and I'm really loving how it's coming along now. It got to the paint stage, and it was painted, and decals were on, and I hate decaling. I had a nightmare of a decaling session. It's my own fault. They were cartograph decals, and they're really nice decals, but I put solver set on them a little bit too early, and they just absolutely crumbled. Cartograph do not need a solver set, they're good as they are. Rather than just give up on the build, I ripped all the ruined decals off with just masking tape. I didn't detack it, just put it on, and then ripped it off like you're waxing your leg. Not that I would know. And then...
that's an ugly picture in my head right now. I'm sorry.
And then on the silhouette cutter, I just made a mask set and just painted them on. It looks so much better. I don't know why I didn't think of doing that in the first place, because I've never been a fan of decals. So that's coming along nice now. I've matte coated it, done tons of paint effects, did my oil work just before. Now I'm working on the drop tanks and landing gear. I was also improving one of my old vignettes, the ICM 3-ton German cargo truck. Really love that build, but I was never really happy with the figure. It's an Alpine DAC officer. Gorgeous figure. Like, Alpine figures are just incredible. But I just found, because I painted it with acrylics last year or the year before, and it was really blocky. So now I like working with oils, because I can just blend them. I don't have to worry about being quick or trying to blend acrylics. It doesn't work for me. I'm so happy with how it looks now. I've now got him on a base. I've added some things to the base. So now there's more of a story rather than just a man looking into the distance. And we don't know why. He's looking at the a sign that I've put up. So it's like what they called road markings that have been painted over by the Allies. So the Germans have no idea where they are. And it just looks so much better now. It's really come together. But yeah, that's what I've been working on. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like the Takom M114 or the King Tiger is going to make it, mainly because the amount of space in the carry boxes is they fill up incredibly quickly. So it doesn't look like they're going to make it, unfortunately.
I want to go back to a couple of your builds. The figure looks really terrific. You've done a great job with it, but the save that you did on the Skyhawk tail, that was fantastic. Like you said, it kind of had me questioning why you just didn't airbrush those markings in the first place, because you did such a great job pulling back from it. Yeah, and I thought it actually looked better.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree, Scott. That thing, when you showed the pictures the first time and you were like all heartbroken, and you turned around within 24 hours and that was beautiful. It would look great. Your ICM build is great too. I mean, the way the figure looks great after you repainted it, the sign, now it's got a story. The little Doug brought up the point today on the chat that you had the little pieces or white drops on the rock where the guy painted over. That was fantastic. That it does have that story now. I'm holding the map, looking at the sign. It's just great. You do really fantastic work.
Yeah, listeners need to check that out on our Facebook page. What kind of paint did you use for the camouflage on the truck? Because the camouflage lines that you did on that, they're really, really tight.
Yeah, that was painted in AK Real Colors. So the yellow is just a Dunkelgelb yellow, and then the green is the olive green, very highly thinned. Doing that soft edge freehand camo, I'm usually really bad at. I can either never get it to look soft enough, or it's either speckly, it's not neat, but that one, it really worked on. And once all the base coats were done, I used ammo oil brushes to accentuate everything, add shadows, highlights, and it looks all right.
Yeah, it does. It looks really good. I also like the fuel cans. There are fuel barrels in the back, the different colors and stuff like that. That pops it also. That's very good.
I can't wait for you to see it at Nats because I'm going to let you pick it up and you'll see how heavy it is. The truck is actually weighed down. It actually has a twisted chassis because it's ICM, really soft plastic.
Right.
None of the resin's hollowed, so it weighs an absolute ton. So it's helped flatten the bed of the truck, which is really cool, but it's terrifying if I drop that because that's just going to explode.
Well, it's right. You're right, though, because it would be weighed down with the barrels in the back like that, and it does have that look to it. So that's really great.
Thank you. And just before we head on to the next section, we have kindly been joined by Doug. And what have you been working on, sir?
Cleaning my house, thank you. Covered with paint right now that's not supposed to be there. I have been trying to get a couple things done for Nats. The A4 for the Model Geeks group build and a Sherman, but I have no hopes for either of them.
We have faith in you. You can do it.
Somebody's
Keep
got
the faith.
to. I sure don't.
Ivan will bring some extra British chocolate over if you do it as a reward. How's that sound?
All right.
First we did buy a Galaxy this big today.
Oh, I love you.
How this is fitting in the case? It's not the actual fitting; it's the weight.
That's okay. You don't have to come. You can just send all the chocolate and the models.
I seem to have become a snack mule for everyone.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, it's great to hear from everyone and what everyone's been up to. But hey, Doug, how about we hear from our sponsor?
All right. The Triple P is pleased to be sponsored by tankcraft.com. Tankcraft makes some fabulous scale modeling accessories for your bench. Okay, tank makers, let's talk tracks. 3D printing is all the rage, and it seems like there's a new line of resin-printed workable tracks coming every other day. If you're looking for the real deal, take a look at Tankcraft's new line of 3D printed Pro Tracks. They're designing and making these track links from scratch, and they are based on real tank tracks and or factory drawings. These are not just reworks of previously produced plastic model parts. Once designed, they are scaled down to 1/35th and test-fitted to kits from all the major brands. I can personally say these tracks are the highest quality, and they are super detailed down to the track pinheads. Layer lines are practically invisible to the naked eye, and cleanup is a breeze. So go on over to tankcraft.com right now and get yourself a set of Pro Tracks. They're as real as it gets. Visit tankcraft.com today. That's TANKRAFT.com to see their whole range of products. Remember, Posse listeners use the code POSSE15 at checkout to get 15% off your first order.
Thanks, Doug. It's time to send a shout out to the Posse Outriders. These are listeners who supported the Posse by becoming Patreon contributors. If you would like to support the Triple P and become a Plastic Posse Outrider, it's super easy. Just head on over to our Patreon page over at www.patreon.com/Plastic Posse Podcast. And you can set up a recurring donation there. You can donate any amount you would like. And this support really helps us to offset the costs of bringing you the Triple P. There are 3 different tiers of supports, and they start at only $1 per month. So let's start out with our top tier, our awesome deputy marshals. We have Chris Toadman Hughes. We have Model Doc, Doug Reed, Greg James, Dan Knopfel, Les Workala, B Colt 1911, John Everett, Josh Buck, Luke Carswell, Thomas Bannock, Mark Bradley, Zach Pease, Joel Munson, Eric Brubaker, David Bryan Bridges, who you'll hear from a little bit later in the show, Ethan Eidenmill, Jared Cow, JC Osborne, Mike Talley, Steve Baker, Bruce the Model Noob, Jeremy Moore, and Rick Cooper. Next, we have our Posse Foreman tier. We have a Previous Seat. We have Enrique Perium. We have Ian Bonner, Lee Fogel, Mr. Grizz, Rob Burnside, Martin Drayton, the voice of Bob, Steve Schaefer, Steve Munsell, Matthew Johnston, John Vitkus, Jamie Stokes, Craig Jarbo, Mike Bird, Jeremy Elliott, Mediocre Middle-Aged Modeler, Eric DeGleesh, Rick Lewis, and Eric Semmelmeyer.
Lastly, but not least, we have the Posse Outriders: Lynn, Neil, Jackson, Chris, Robert, Brian, Matthew, David, and Jamie. Well done, deputies. We really appreciate all your help and support. Just a reminder, the Posse is just one of several scale modeling podcasts out there. And if you would like to see the list of some of these podcasts, plus the social media creators, head over to modelpodcast.com and you will find links to many of them.
With Nats only a couple of weeks away, there's a couple of group builds reaching the big finale. The M3 and 4 group build has been an outstanding success, and I, along with everyone here, just want to say a heartfelt thank you to each and every one of you who took part, took the time, and took your passion and energy to be involved in this community project. I think it's very clear to see that we have one of the best communities on the planet, and it's been really something to see everyone's work, camaraderie, community spirit throughout this build. Again, thank you all so very, very much. But we are not done yet.
I think this is, Ivan, this is a good time to remind everybody, JB's been going live. I don't know if he's going to go live every day, but nearly every day he receives new models for the group build. And then also just to kind of generally talk about the group build. So keep an eye over on our Facebook page for those live videos. Those are kind of fun. I think he's been doing a good job on those.
He has. You can see the excitement when he receives a model in the post. He's like a kid at Christmas.
Yeah, it's really great. It's to see the reaction and see the models come out, and I don't know how they're coming out fantastic. I mean, very little wear, very little stuff on them, and they're going together great. So I think he's got 3 or 4 now. I think 3 that have made it to his house already. So that's great.
And I think something that excites him a lot as well is and we discussed this later on, but it's one thing seeing them online, but when you see them in person, it's like, whoa, incredible.
Yeah, that's the whole thing too. And and seeing the progress people are making on the website has just been, jaw dropping. It's the people are just, they're building some beautiful Shermans, just fantastic work all the way around. And I think, I want to reiterate something TJ said last time we were on, is that, or JB, or either one, that, if you have a Sherman, bring it. We'll put it on the group table, and, it doesn't cost you anything. We just want to, get your stuff out there, get it seen with us. And that's what we want.
Any Sherman, Lee, Grant, or a variant of it, any of those. Yeah, you're welcome. We'd love to have you a part of the group. As I watch those videos, I don't know about you guys, but the modeling, of course, is fantastic. But I've been kind of fascinated by the engineering cunning of our modelers, the way that they design the packaging to get the models to JB in one piece. It's been almost as much fun, seeing the innovation there as it has the actual model kits.
And it's not just the fact that the guys are sending them; it's the pain for them to be sent out of their own pocket. It's like sending stuff, especially this stuff's going to be insured, isn't cheap. So again, we appreciate greatly the cost and the time and the effort that everyone's gone to just to get these little plastic models to the biggest show in the States. It's incredible.
Right. So they paid for the kit. They took the time to build it. Who knows how many hours. In a lot of cases, they've made these beautiful bases, and then they send them here, and they don't ever expect to see them again. They don't want them back. I mean, there's so much going on here and so much generosity with these guys. I just think it's stunning. It's just amazing what they're willing to do.
We were all very inspired at Vegas by the AMP SoCal display. It was so awesome. And so hopefully, maybe between us and the Geeks A4 group builds, we can inspire, some local clubs or some people to do it, because it really does kind of bring everybody together in sort of an esprit de corps, like we've been saying. But it's a lot of fun to have everybody kind of work on a project collectively like this.
Oh, definitely. And you're right, Scott, the engineering to get these boxes out here, and then JB whips out that big knife and I'm like, oh my God, no. But yeah, it's fun. It's really great. And you guys have been all the people that are, partaking in this. You're all fantastic. I just, hope we really, really do appreciate that. And it's just been fantastic.
Well, we plan on recognizing people that have participated in this. Peter Fidlotsky, he designed early on a logo for the group. I can confirm that we've kind of taken that and done some fun stuff with that. And we've got some other, posse swag. And whether you're at the show or not, we'll make sure to get that out to you. But we just want to thank everybody for the participation. And it's just been amazingly inspiring to see people's work, see people from Matt McDougall, from his 3D printing, almost creating his own kit, to all of the different paint schemes and, just everything down the line. It's been awesome. At first you think, oh yeah, Sherman group build. How exciting is that? 14 green, olive drab green Shermans, but it's really been anything but that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you see I swear people are digging into their archives and finding the most bizarre one-off or whatever Sherman that they can find and recreating it fantastically. And some of them even making magazines now. So, that's a big thing too. So congratulations on that.
I just want to also give a shout out to Joel Middleton, who's making the crab version. And that's just amazing. He was going to send it to me to bring over, but because of its length, it won't fit in my box. So I think he's having that shipped directly to the conference center. Hopefully that gets there all safe, and we can't wait to see it because the crab just looks menacing and cool. Unfortunately, I think there's one variant we're not going to see, and I think is it the Calliope? I think
Calliope.
There we are. That's my terrible memory and crap accent coming through. I love that version. Unfortunately, I just don't think just not a kit of it, or not a good one, that is.
Yeah, for those of you out there, if you're not familiar with the Calliope, it's basically a Sherman with a multi-tiered eggplant launcher on the top of the turret. And, the Shermans could camp and, park the tank and then just launch like dozens and dozens of these eggplants at an enemy at any one time.
And for all you English speakers out there, an eggplant is an aubergine. While we're on the subject of Nats and the group build, I do also just want to give a mention to volunteering at the Nats. Obviously, this show relies quite a lot on volunteers, and it survives through the generosity of people giving up their time to help. If that's helping set up, or that's helping bring in the crowds and bring in visitors. Any help that the show can receive is greatly appreciated. So if you could, I know the email was sent out this week for everyone who's pre-registered, asking if they could volunteer some of their time, and it would be really, really great if you could. Information can be found on the IPMS USA 2022 website regarding any information regarding the matter. So if you could volunteer, even just a couple of hours out of your time for the weekend, it would be really appreciated.
Appreciate that, Ivan. And then also the IPMS 2022 Nationals Facebook page. It will also be a great place that you can do. And if that doesn't work, you can get a hold of one of us and we'll put you in contact with Scott Hackney, who's the show chair in Omaha. But any help will be appreciated. And I also want to challenge you three guys and also any of our listeners, if you've got some experience and you can help with the judging at IPMS Nationals, I know they would appreciate that. And if you've never judged, they do have a judge training program where they can put you with an experienced team. You can learn a lot and make some new friendships. It's really a great experience. So maybe consider that if you are going to Omaha.
Also, our good friends over at the Model Geeks are having their A4 Skyhawk build coming to a close, and would be amazing to see a great display of A4s at Nats. So if you have one of those on the go, please try and get it done in time. How's the progress going with you guys?
Very well. I'd like to get it finished tomorrow because I'm not doing any more weathering on it. I've flat coated it now. Looks really cool. Just need to finish up the landing gear and drop tanks, and it should be done. Just need to also paint in the lights, but they should be done.
Mine is coming along. I am working on the drop tanks now. I did find a pretty major seam. I don't know how I missed it, or if it maybe just split while I was working on it, right on the nose, right on the top of the nose. So I filled that in. I'm going to have to repaint that section, but that's okay. I don't mind. I don't mind that too much.
I know JB's. I've seen pictures of his on the web. It's looking, he's got his little Top Gun Viper getting ready to get that done. And so, hopefully we'll see that there at NAS also.
It's time for our feature interview. And guys, this interview is something I owe David Bryan Bridges, aka DB Scale Model Studio. Owe him a little bit of an apology. We've had this interview done for quite a while, but just juggling everything, it hasn't happened. But JB and I sat down a while back with him, and he's an excellent modeler, huge supporter of our podcast, and all around great guy. He's actually been over at World Model Expo sending photos to the Posse group. So if you guys haven't seen those, make sure and check those out. Anyway, in this interview, David shares some great insights into his own modeling, how the hobby has helped him, and his thoughts on IPMS. I hope you guys enjoy this interview because JB and I certainly did when we sat down with David. So here's the interview. Welcome to another Plastic Posse podcast interview brought to you by Sean's Custom Model Tools. We always talk about the amazing super sanding blocks, but did you know that Sean also makes 3D printed sprue holders, tape dispensers, glue holders, and many other great tools for your bench? Check out Sean's awesome new website over at seanscustommodeltools.com. Well, today we have a treat for you. You know him on Facebook and also Instagram as DB Scale Model Studio. We are very pleased to welcome David Bridges to the Plastic Posse. Welcome, David.
Hey, nice to be here with you guys. Pleasure to be here.
David, we are super stoked to talk. And, I immediately want to start off with, where do you live right now?
I am in Daytona Beach, Florida. That's my hometown. I lived here till I got through college and then moved away for 14 years and came back 5 years ago.
Nice. So I asked this, listeners, because I spent some time in Daytona going to school, and we both went to the same school, Embry-Riddle. Yeah. And when did you graduate?
2001.
Okay, so I just missed you by like 3 years. Crazy small world. Oh, yeah. Now, did you go to the Hobbytown USA in Oregon?
Oh, yeah. I worked at Hobbytown for 4.5 years, from 98 to the end, right at the very end of 2002. Yeah.
Nice. I remember that was a good escape from campus when the tests were bogging you down.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And I think we just missed each other there too. So in addition to the Hobbytown, there was another small shop in Daytona proper, I guess you could say.
This is probably just south of Daytona and South Daytona, ironically called Ace Hobbies. And that was the one I went to as a kid all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Now it was in like a small strip plaza, or almost like maybe not even a strip plaza, just a building. I just remember it kind of being a little dark.
Yeah, it was old school. It was a classic copy shop, man. Yeah,
little dingy. Is that where you started building models, or got the bug?
Yeah, that's Ace Hobbies. Yeah, this old guy named Lou Ravigno owned it. It was mostly RC planes for the most part. That was his big thing. But he had a decent model aisle, a lot of model aircraft, which is what I was really all about as a kid. And I just ride my bike down there from the parents' house and get whatever I felt like I could carry back on the handlebars of my bike and try to get them home without destroying the boxes. And Ace Hobbies for many years that was my joint. That's where I spent a lot of my time.
Nice. So outside of hobby shops, I think Florida has a pretty good IPMS base. There's the guys up in Jacksonville. Have you gone to JaxCon?
Yeah, I've been to JaxCon a couple times. Yeah, it's a really good show. I think it used to be a one-day show, but I think now they're doing a 2-day show, I believe. And there's IPMS Orlando. I went to their show back in October, I believe it was. That was the first one I went to after COVID, and it was the first one I went to before COVID. So it was nice to go back to that again. They do a great show. They kind of do their own version of the open system, where it's just you competing as yourself, which I really like. There's also a club, I think IPMS Space Coast down in the Cocoa area. I think the Pelican scale models are still around over on the West Coast, and there may be 1 or 2 clubs down in Miami, but I don't get down that far usually.
It's Model Palooza, right? Is that one of the shows?
Yeah, it's the one in Orlando. Yeah, it's the one I just went to. Yeah.
I've heard that's really good. I've never had the opportunity to go to it.
It is. I think this past time, they had about 500 models on the table, and they had a really cool display of some like studio scale Star Wars stuff. They had this giant Millennium Falcon, and this AT-AT must have been maybe 4 feet tall, this huge thing, and some really cool stuff that was all being built commercially for people, but they were advertising kind of there, and they had some demos and stuff.
Cool.
Really good show, a lot of good vendors. So if anybody's ever in the Orlando area, late part of the year, I don't know if it's yearly, but I think it is, but they do a really good show. I definitely highly recommend Model Palooza for sure.
So for the Space Coast show, was it held close to like the Tycho Air Museum or TICO?
Back when I used to go there, that was the first, I'd say that was the second IPMS show I ever went to, was the Space Coast guys, and I went that one every year, and it used to be in the old Elks Lodge, I think, not far off of 95.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's funny you mentioned that, because I went down and visited Riddle trying to figure out what I want to do with my life in high school, and my dad conveniently timed it when the Space Coast show was happening. So
I like your dad.
Yeah, he was.
Thanks, Dad.
He always had the priorities straight. So we flew down and took a tour of campus. And then I remember that Elks Lodge, and we went there, and it was a really nice show. And then we went over to the Warbird Museum, which was nearby. spent some time at NASA. So, it's Florida's got a good community, I think, for
it's not
shows,
bad.
it seems.
Daytona's a little weird. At least now, there's not much in the way of hobby shops anymore. Ace Hobbies is closed down, unfortunately, years ago. Hobbytown moved to Sanford, and so there's really only one little shop here locally, and they're mostly RC. And they're kind of when Ace Hobbies closed, he bought out all the remaining stock and opened up his own thing. And now it's just pretty much, I was there the other day to pick up some super glue, and they're almost solely RC now. So pretty much Sprue Brothers is getting all my money these days for the most part.
Whose money aren't they getting?
Gordon gets all of our money, I think.
Good Lord, Gordon. Geez, oh man. I want to meet your kids one day. I feel like we funded their education in a good way. So, I mean, he's fantastic. Going back to, the Daytona Beach area, outside of modeling and, model shows, hobby shops, I think it also has a very rich aviation community. I mean, you're right next to the Collins Foundation where they restore those aircraft every year, right? For annual maintenance?
Yeah. And actually it's a company called American Aero at the New Smyrna Airport has a facility there, and they're about 5 minutes down the road from my house. You can walk in, they're all really cool, and you just walk in and just wander around. And I got to watch a P-38 fly for the first time after they brought it out of resto. At an F6F Hellcat that was going through restoration. That was cool to watch them working on the landing gear one day. Another time they had the Collins B-24 there, and a guy was doing there's some Army helicopters there also getting some maintenance done, and the guy was giving them a guided tour of how to work the ball turret on a B-24. Nice. And he's like, just go wander through the plane if you want. I'm like, all right, you're going to tell me twice. I was crawling around the plane, getting pictures of everything. But yeah, it's between that and Embry-Riddle and just Florida in general just has so much aviation. For me, with aviation being my first love, it was definitely not hard to get into airplanes in this area. And I still love flying with buddies of mine and hanging out at American Aero and just seeing what's going on down there.
Dude, American Aero is great. I had the opportunity. They had the open house. They might still do it when I was in school. And man, I went over there, and like you said, I just show up. They're like, "Hey, here, open the door. Come on in. Take a look at our wares." And it's like there's a P-51 under restoration. They had a beautiful Corsair. I mean, I think it was Korean War one, darker blue, gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. The B-24 was undergoing annual maintenance. They had the 25 there. So it was like a playground for adults. And like you said, the staff was super friendly. So listeners, if you're ever in the Florida Atlantic coast area, Daytona Beach, Jacksonville even, it's worth the drive down to see it.
And the cool part is you never know what they're going to have. I went in there one time and they had a Scud launcher. Like the big, giant 8-wheel thing with a Scud on it. I was like, that's kind of cool. And another time they had an old, I think it was a T-62 that they were converting into a Tiger tank for something.
Oh, very cool.
Kind of Saving Private Ryan style with a bigger chassis. There were a guy was welding up the turret, and they had the superstructure already taken off the hull and everything. It was kind of cool to see that getting taken apart and worked on to become a movie-style Tiger tank. So it's always really cool stuff going on there, which really fuels the juices for, thinking about your own projects and stuff.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's really cool. So one other thing in Florida, and I'll send out the information to you. It might be close to you. There's a guy down there. I think he goes by Rabbi, and he owns a crap ton of armor.
Yeah, that's a group called World War II Armor. And their website's worldwar2armor.org. But yeah, he's an actual honest to God rabbi, and I guess he has money too. But he has his own collection. He actually has one of the Tigers from Saving Private Ryan. Yep. Based on the T-34. He's got several Shermans, and I think an M7, an M10, an M36. I think they just got a Hellcat. They've got all kinds of stuff, but that's also about 10 minutes down the road from me.
Oh, geez. I didn't know it was that close.
Yeah, apparently there's a gun range down there too, and some buddies of mine from work will go down there and they'll be at the range. The next thing they hear somebody else shooting off stuff that's much larger than 9mm or something.
I follow so I've seen some of their vehicles because they come up to D-Day, Ohio every year on Lake Erie. They do this massive reenactment, and they bring up probably 3 or 4 of their vehicles, but they also have a really nice Facebook page, and we'll post it on our page to share to our listeners. But what's really neat, it seems that you can essentially be a part of that reenactment community. They go out and do maneuvers and train on, how to be a tanker. So it seems like they really bring a 100% level of authenticity when operating those vehicles as well.
I looked at their website, and it seems like they really stick to, time period accurate, regulations for haircuts and shaving and uniform. And I've thought about maybe once I retire in about 7 years of maybe picking that up as an additional hobby, because I'll have some time on my hands. So why not go play with tanks for a while?
Oh yeah. Weekend out in the, sand pits of Florida, driving around in a Sherman sounds good to me.
I'd do it.
Florida is really a great place. Other than Disney and beaches, there's also a lot of military stuff down there. There's another museum, and I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but it was I feel like it's a firearm museum, and they bought a big collection from Hubbard, Ohio, and it's down there now.
I think that's someone either near Cocoa or Melbourne or something, but I've heard of that too. But yeah, there is a big, and I haven't been able to find the website for it, but there is. I've heard of that, and it's down there too. Yeah. But I mean, even if you go out to the sticks, you go out to Camp Blanding.
Oh, I've been to Camp Blanding.
They have a really good museum there. You wouldn't expect it because it's really just a National Guard post, but they have a pretty nice museum with some stuff captured during the Gulf War, and a few other older pieces, and a nice little small indoor museum. But it's just middle of the nowhere, and you just run across some T-55 sitting outside a little building, and that's cool. So.
Man, it's funny you mentioned Camp Blanding. I went there. I think it was spring break during junior year, and I'm like, you know what? I like tanks. I think I Googled museums in Florida, and that one popped up. So on a Saturday, I drove by myself out to the middle of nowhere, Florida. I don't think the museum was open inside, but outside, I mean, there's a M4A3E8. There's the stuff from the Gulf War. There's a C-47. And it's just like me and these rusty hulks. So I spent the day climbing around them. But it's really funny you mentioned Camp Blanding. That brings me back. I'm sorry, listeners. We've talked a lot about Florida. Maybe we'll get back on track and go towards scale modeling, and specifically your scale modeling, David. And I'll pass the torch back to Scott to kick off some more questions.
Yeah, thanks, John. For those of you out there that might not be familiar with DB Scale Model Studio, he has almost 8,000 followers on Facebook, and he's also on Instagram. So, David, let's start out with a little bit about you and then go on to your channel. Tell us about how you got started in the hobby.
Growing up, I always liked to build stuff, and I think that was probably just in the family. Dad was always really into woodworking, and as a kid, he had a wood shop out back of our house in South Daytona, and he would build clocks and furniture, but my dad also liked military history and airplanes too, so he would always build me these airplanes out of wood that he would scratch build. And they were pretty simple, but I loved them. I probably had 200 of them by the time he was done making them once I got older. I had Legos and stuff, of course, as a kid, so I always loved building. I was trying to think of what the first model I ever did. I can't remember the first one, but the one I really remember is in 4th grade. I had chicken pox and I was stuck at home, and Dad brought home a 32 Ford Roadster kit. And I remember putting that one together. Like, man, this is really cool. It was probably the most complicated kit I'd built at that point. And shortly after that, I kind of went straight into aircraft because I always loved airplanes. I was always building World War II stuff and riding my bike down to Ace Hobbies and getting whatever World War II plane I could find. And it stuck like that for a while. And maybe around 9th grade, I figured out airbrushes. I forgot the old cheap Testers external mix airbrush at Walmart for like $20 with a little small can of CO2. And that really opened up a whole nother world. One day for Christmas break, I think it was my junior year of high school, 95, I'm watching Return of the Jedi on TV. And I'm reading this book about World War II tanks, and all of a sudden the question pops up in my head. I'm like, I wonder if they make tank models, because I had never thought about it. I would go to Ace Hobbies and I would go straight to the airplanes. That's all I cared about. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get in the Oldsmobile tomorrow and drive over there and see what they got. And sure enough, they had about a dozen or so armor kits. I was like, oh man, wow, I can't believe it. This is great. And I bought an old Nichimo 35th scale Panther G, which is about as ancient a tank model as you can find, and built it in a day and painted it same day. And I was like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever done, ever, hobby-wise. And I was like, I got to get more. And after that, it's been no turning back. I almost exclusively do armor, except I still like to do aircraft from time to time. But yeah, that's kind of how I got into armor. And just shortly after that, I found Shep Payne's books and Verlinden books and things like that. And that really got my head thinking of things that I'd never even considered for years and years of building aircraft, as washes and dry brushing. And it's all been financially downhill from there.
Yeah, we hear you there. Those old Testers airbrushes with the cans you shake up, I'm not sure if those drove more people screaming from the hobby or brought people into the hobby.
I would take mine. It would leak, so I would wrap a paper towel around the cup at the bottom so my hand wouldn't get covered in paint. They were not really a quality machine. It's definitely not Iwata, but it got me started, and I definitely, I remember being out on the carport of my parents' house with that old external mix airbrush dripping paint everywhere, and just enjoying the heck out of it.
Yeah, I'd be out in the garage with a bowl of scalding hot water to try and keep that can actually pushing some air and screaming and swearing at it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, when did you initially decide you wanted to start creating content? So, yeah, what kind of prompted you to make your channel?
For years and years, I remember being in high school, and that was right when the internet was first really getting big. And I remember finding TrackLink and missing links and seeing all these kits online. I was like, man, it was really cool to see so many people from all these places throughout the world doing these really great kits. And that was neat, but it was almost kind of like if you weren't quite good enough, or if you weren't within a certain level that you really couldn't get your stuff out there and be published. And then Facebook came along, and for a long time that was just people that I knew. Then I started discovering, wow, there's modelers like making pages just for models. That's really cool. And then I was like, well, why not me? It's a great way to share your hobby with people and from all over the world. And it's really been a blessing. Just people send me messages, or I meet other people like you guys through it. And it's just a great way to share my hobby with other like-minded people. And to me, it's been probably the easiest way to do that with so many people from all over the world with the same interest. It's really amazing.
We talk about social media on the podcast all the time, and there's obviously warts to it, but that ability to collaborate with everybody around the world and to collaborate with people that we would have never ever met before, it's just not the same experience as looking in the back of a fine scale modeler magazine. Is just a great chance to really expand your social circle and find people that inspire you.
And and everybody's on a different level in their hobby and their journey, and it's really nice for somebody to be able to reach out to Night Shift or Adam Wilder or Mike Rinaldi and say, hey man, what do you think about this? Or I'm struggling with that. Because I remember early on, somehow I found Shepard Payne's AOL Instant Messenger handle, and I was actually able to ask him a question once years and years ago, and he helped me out with figuring out like how to do pin washes and stuff. And I always remember that. I was like, that's really cool that this guy who's
awesome.
World renowned would reach out and do that. Yeah. But everybody's on a different level. So if I'm definitely not Mike Rinaldi or anybody, but maybe I'm a little bit farther on than somebody else. And if they want to ask me a question, that's the best thing I can do with my hobby, is just to be able to say, hey, here's what's worked for me. Why don't you try this or that? And I get a lot of questions from people about just, what do I do with this? Or they make a kit of that. And if I can help them in any way, I feel like that's just one small way to kind of give back to the hobby and, help somebody else grow and learn and really enjoy what they do.
Man, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've talked a little bit about, obviously, Shep had a huge impact on you. What other social media creators inspire you?
Definitely. It's funny. I know on certain podcasts, they ring a bell every time you mention his name, but Uncle Night Shift's got to be one. Just the way he breaks things down so simply. And I recently did my first diorama I've ever completed because I saw him do one. I was like, you know what, man, he is breaking that down to make it look so easy. And even though my efforts aren't nearly as accomplished as his look, I was like, well, I'm really pleased. And it was just because of watching his videos and stuff. And that's really a talent, just not only be able to do it that well, but to be able to communicate that efficiently and that well, that where somebody can just try to replicate it. And it was a ton of fun doing that. But obviously Mike Rinaldi, Adam Wilder, Adam Wilder's style is just so almost bold, almost impressionist. It's really wonderful to look through that. And I'm looking through his book now. I finally got to hold a copy of his book, which is great.
Nice.
But there's the neat part about social media is there's so many people out there, just so many pages. They're so this wildly talented. It's just not even, they're not making books. They're not, sponsored by anybody, but they're just unbelievably talented. There's a guy named The Art of Panzer.
Yep.
Sung Young Jang, I think, is one guy's name. But there's so many guys out there to see so much cool stuff. And I have a little folder on my phone, and I see a picture, something really strikes me. It's like my inspiration folder, and I'll save something. It's like, man, I want to know how did that guy do that? That's so cool. I'm going to save that picture. I'm going to play around with that, see if I can't do that on the next model. But it's just there's got to be hundreds and hundreds of people out there just, to me, are just really amazing. And it'd be impossible for everybody, I guess, to get credit for how good they are. It's just impossible. But it's just a never ending. There's always somebody new. And that to me is just amazing to see all that coming together through these platforms.
Well, I would add DB Scale Model Studio. I'm just going to call out that T34 you did earlier this year on that beautiful base. And, I noticed there was a lot of buzz around that, and you were helping a lot of people with questions on that. But, you're inspiring a lot of people as well.
Well, thank you. Yeah, if I can do anything to help people enjoy the hobby, absolutely. But that T34 was a lot of fun. That base was that was hard to find that base. That was not as easy as I thought it would have been to find a simple wooden base, but just the right size. I wanted something to be kind of evocative of those memorials you see in Russia with the old World War II tanks up on a plinth. And I just kind of got the idea. I was like, and then people really responded to it, which is really cool.
Well, to get, go back to Martin and his channel, lately he's been focusing on, bases and structures and, kind of everything in addition to the model. And your presentation on that T-34 was really, really top notch. I mean, the kind of the adding a base or the way that you present a model, I think that's an area that is going to get a lot more attention in the future. And you really hit it out of the park on that project.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I one of the other projects that I really enjoyed, and I'm happy that you changed your mind about the tarp on the Yog Tiger. Come on, man.
Yeah. That's, again, the benefit of having all these people coming together. I Porsche Yacht Tiger, I'd wanted to do that for a long time, and I'd actually, second time I'd built that kit years ago, it ended up not going so well, and I was telling Scott before when we were talking that either I finish it or it ends up in the trash can. I don't really have a shelf of doom because I just kind of get frustrated. I was like, it's time to move past the frustration, so I don't have too many things sitting around that don't get finished. But that was one I gotten so far along, and I had this idea, and it was a good idea, and I just totally screwed it up. And my idea to camouflage it was to put in this tarp over it. I was like, I've never made a tarp, but I've seen these videos. I'm going to give it a shot. I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And I was like, put it out there for some critique. And JB's like, well, this looks a little out of place. And other people are like, yeah, he's kind of right. And I'm like, well, I don't know how to fix this. He's like, dude, it's easy. And he was right. It was easy. And his solution absolutely worked a treat. And I was very, very glad I listened because, that tarp, without any context to it, would not have made really any sense. So points for JB.
Oh, well, it turned out really great. The only tarp I've ever seen like that, there's a L70A abandoned in like a courtyard, and they had a very large tarp like that over the barrel.
I recently made a post on my Facebook page. There's definitely been a lot of people on the way that I wouldn't expect people to necessarily know, even though they're great modelers and kind of notable in their own right. One for me very, very early on was a guy named Joe Morgan. Back in the 80s and 90s and maybe even into the early 2000s, worked for Kalmbach. He did a lot of articles for Fine Scale, and Kalmbach Publishing, who owns Fine Scale, used to put out a lot of modeling books and how-tos. And just randomly, I was in a Air Force JROTC in high school, and we had a bookcase, and there was this magazine there with the cover ripped off. I just picked it up and started looking through his all-scale models, and I was just starting to kind of get into the bigger world of scale modeling. I didn't know there were scale modeling magazines even. I had never heard of Fine Scale Modeler. And I opened this magazine. I was like, oh, wow, this is unbelievable. All these great models in this, and they're all World War II. And it turned out it was an old, like a one-off special edition that Kalmbach had done of like World War II models and great scale modeling kind of thing. This one article about how this guy named Joe Morgan converted the old Tamiya M3 Stewart into an M2A4 on Guadalcanal. And I just remember looking at that, I was like, man, this is so amazing. And I cut out the title picture of it, and I taped it up to my bedroom wall at my parents' house. And I was like, I want to be this good. I want to be this good at making models. I still have that picture taped up, or actually on my cork board in my hobby office now. Years go by, and, I started reading all the Shep and Verlinden stuff. And I went to work at Hobbytown, and one day I walked in, and they had that little display case above where the models were at. And I walk in, and there's Joe Morgan's models in the display case. And I about had a heart attack. It's like, what? And I went and asked one of the guys, are those Joe Morgan's models? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, how did they get there? And he's like, well, he lives around here. I was like, get out of here. You got to be kidding me. And it turns out he worked for Hawaiian Tropic here locally. And he's like, well, next time Joe comes in, if you're here, I'll introduce you. And sure enough, a few weeks later, I got my introduction, and he was just the nicest guy. Never got tired of me asking questions. He let me go in the case and pick up his models, which even with my own stuff, I'd be like, oh, please don't touch. But he didn't care. He's just the nicest guy. He'd always bring in these cool, back then Cromwell models, as maybe unsophisticated as they might seem now, were cutting edge resin productions back then. And he'd bring those in for me to look at. And that's how I found out about Tony Greenland's book, was he brought in a copy. And just a wonderful guy, and somebody I really aspired to be as good as far as modeling skills, and to actually get to meet him and him be so open with everything was really great. Another early influence about the same time, the very first model contest I went to was actually at Embry-Riddle, where JB and I went to school. And it was my senior year of high school, and they were having a contest in the old student union. There was like a model group at the school. So I was like, yeah, I want to go to this. So me and a couple of buddies of mine from ROTC went, and I brought a few models, and there was a guy there, and he had these just amazing BF 109s and FW 190s, these just gorgeous aircraft models. And I'm like, man, I didn't know you could make anything that looked that amazing. And I was like, hey, man, are these yours? And he's like, yeah. And he introduced himself, and his name was Lynn Ritker. And
yeah.
Lynn's one of the experts in the BF 109 out there. He's written a couple of books on it. Amazing guy, absolute just keen wit, funny guy. And I got to know him for many years. He would come in the hobby shop, and after I moved, I'd run across him, at model contests here and there. And then Facebook came around, so I still keep touch with him. But he was just such an open guy. There weren't any secrets to how he did stuff. And he was just a wonderful guy and just a fountain of knowledge. I still go to him from times like, man, I need to know something about some Luftwaffe subject, man. Can you help me out? Oh, yeah, it's this, and this. And just those people that were really just so open and honest and no secrets. Because I've run across other people over the years that could easily have been that encouraging, and all they want to try and do is kind of tear people down. And, you really have that kind of choice. Do you want to help, or do you want to just make more of yourself? And both Joe and Lynn were both guys like, I'd rather boost other people up than make myself look big. So those guys are, you won't hear their names very often, but they're both guys who meant a whole lot to me in my own growth in the hobby.
Yeah, Lynn still goes to the Nats, I'm pretty sure. I've seen his work there from time to time.
He's gotten really big lately into storytelling with modeling. He's big on Luftwaffe subjects, but he's about as far away from anything to do with far-right politics as you can possibly have. And he likes to tell the stories of those aircraft and what really went in behind them, the production, and really a lot of the human sadness that, sometimes we forget about. But it's an important part of the story. And for me, that's kind of, again, talking about inspiration, I love building models that have something to do with the people behind them. That Jagdtiger that I built was inspired by reading through books and histories of the 653rd Heavy Anti-Tank Battalion, and reading about this guy who served through Kursk and served on elephants, and then moved on to the Jagdtiger later, and then he was just horribly wounded there, and then he came back again right before the war ended, and he ended up surviving for the whole war. And to me, that was really amazing. The T-34 was Alexandra Samosenko, who was the only woman to rise to that rank in the Soviet army. She was a brigade commander at the end of the war before, unfortunately, she was killed by one of her own vehicles. But the whole story behind her and how she interacted with some other people throughout her career was just really, really fascinating. So to see that human side, and kind of, again, that's something I've kind of been a little bit inspired by Lynn, is something that definitely informs my hobby and what the subjects I choose. Not just personal interest, but, is there a really cool human story behind it? Because the machines are neat, but the people behind them, to me, are more interesting.
I'll go back to that Jagdtiger story, that book, and I would recommend our listeners. I believe you read it in the Combat History of Schwerpanzerjägerabteilung 653, yep. And they have a book 654 as well. Those personal stories in those books are absolutely astounding. I mean, to hear what those tank crews went through. I mean, I think one of the snippets from 653, the guy talked about how they just sat in the elephant and waited for the Russians to pass, and then got out at night and, got back across the line. It's little things like that are just unbelievable. And then the pictures as well in there from personal collections, and those combat history books are straight unbelievable, extremely personal as well, which I'm glad you bring that up. So shifting gears a little bit, we talk about the people we meet, the personal stories of models. One of the ways outside of social media to engage with modelers is model shows. We've talked a little bit about the regional aspect of Florida and the local shows that you go to there. Do you attend the nationals as well?
I have been to the IPMS Nats 5 times. I am no longer an IPMS member.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I actually just forgot to renew, and it just has never gotten renewed. I do have some issues with IPMS. That being said, I think it's good that we have an organization, but it's got to start changing. It's got to start growing, because otherwise I unfortunately think that it's going to die on the vine, so to speak. In my mind, I think there's space out there for an all-new organization. I think that would be a pity. I would rather see IPMS grow into something newer and better I don't know if that will happen. Maybe I'm just a pessimist. I would like to see change. I like guys like you that are trying to get involved, trying to make that change. Now, for many years, I mean, I cut my teeth competitively going to IPMS shows, and I definitely learned a lot about being, I guess you could say, a conscientious builder and making sure everything's, square and level and put together well. But just organizationally, I think it's become a little staid and a little stagnant, and they've really got to grow. And you could probably say that about most nearly any modeling club out there right now, even AMPS, even though I am an AMPS member, and I definitely enjoy personally going to the big AMP show more than the NATS. It's a little bit more focused for me, but I like all the other subjects too, so the NATS are cool. It's just the competition method that you get at AMPS to me is more engaging, and there's more room for personal growth through that open system, or something like an open system for me.
Is that because the AMP system sort of is like playing golf, where the modeler is competing against himself versus competing against other modelers, or what aspect do you like?
Yeah, I've judged at all levels, both AMPS and IPMS. I've judged at least 2 or 3 of the IPS NATs that I've been to, and I've judged at a ton of local and regional shows over the years, and I am an AMPS certified judge and table captain and all that good stuff. And for me, it's definitely, not only is the judging methodology, I feel, for the AMP shows more productive for the modeler, because you get some of that feedback, and either it's something new you didn't know, or a lot of times, like for me, I find that I'll think, I'm kind of wondering about this thing on this model. I'm going to enter it in this AMPS International show and see the feedback I get. And yeah, they're kind of verifying what I was already kind of thinking, So you get that feedback, which is great. But also, as performing the job function, it's really fun to sit there for 2 hours with 3 other guys and get down and dirty and look at these models up close and really get to talk about them, because it's really inspirational sometimes too. Sometimes it's kind of tough because you get somebody who's clearly, they need to be brought up along, and you have the opportunity to help them along, which again is really great. But also you get to spend time with other modelers and really get to know people and just really enjoy the time, not looking at the models, but just talking models with these guys. And to me, that's a little bit more enjoyable than the kind of sometimes almost intense kind of feeling of judging like an IPMS NATS, where there's definitely pressure for time and you've got to winnow down these big categories and everything. Whereas at AMPS, you're just looking at one model at a time and you're just thinking about that one model. So for me, it's definitely enjoyable, not only from the aspect of me personally, but what I can give back.
Let's stick on the topic of IPMS. As a society, where do you think there are opportunities for the society to grow and evolve and attract and more importantly, retain membership, like yourself?
I think the world, obviously, we can, it's nothing brilliant to say the world has changed, and even for scale modeling, it's the same. I mean, even if you think about, we're talking about old modeling websites like TrackLink and Missing Links. Those are even kind of, at this point, a little outmoded, because even if you don't have your own website at this point, you can go on Facebook and set something up for free, whether it's your own personal site or a group for all kinds of people for whatever subject you want. So there's a lot more flexibility, I think. And if they can find ways to really bring in more people in their specific group, like Gundams or cars or something, because IPMS, it's really easy to fit in with airplanes and even armor. But maybe the Gundam guys or the car guys might not find that the organization's really quite what they were hoping for. And there's other groups out there within those organizations that might serve them better. I think what's good about IPMS is the fact that there is so many different categories. There are so many different kinds of modelers in there. But if you can find a way to enhance that experience for them, where each of those groups feels like they really belong and that their way of doing things can be accepted. And in my mind, it might be better maybe to switch to a method of where each of those different categories is almost like its own guild or something. And within the larger organization, there's certain big rules or framework that you go through, but then each guild, so to speak, might be able to have their own specific stuff. That judging style or building style might be different, but within that particular area, it's still acceptable. Because it's great that we have all these different groups, but sometimes it can be hard to wrangle them and get everybody together. So if we can find a way to kind of bring people together, but also give them a lot of flexibility to be creative within their own genre and space, I think that would be helpful. And sometimes it feels like kind of the NAT system as it is now kind of pigeonholes people into a very specific way of building models.
I think what it's important for people to understand about IPMS is exactly, what you've hinted at, where there's IPMS as an organization, and then the convention, the nationals is that culmination, but within the convention, there's the contest. In the contest, it's actually governed by a body that is associated with IPMS, but it operates on its own accord. It's the National Contest Committee. They're a group of members that, decide the rules and enforce them every contest. And I do think there are opportunities to evolve. When I think about IPMS and certainly now as a person of the e-board, it's important to look at every aspect of the organization, and especially aspects of the organization that draw, dare I say, criticism. When you talk about IPMS and you want to understand where there are opportunities, I tell you what, 9 out of 10 people point to the contest. 9 out of 10 people believe that if there is, something to improve, something to evolve, it always goes towards the contest and how, modelers are judged, rewarded, and evaluated for that matter. So I think there's an opportunity for that. I will say it won't happen overnight. But what I will say is I think there is a really good agent of change in the e-board right now. There's a lot of new members on it, and we've had internal discussions, and we are all aligned on what people are saying and what needs to evolve over the near term, and to not only grow the society, but not lose members. And I think there are simple steps outside of that as well, making it more intuitive to find your membership information. But one of the things I'd love to hit on, and you mentioned right there, room for another organization. This has always intrigued me because before running for IPMS, I seriously considered starting a new modeling group on kind of an IPMS level or AMPS level. And I'd love to hear your thoughts, David, on how would you go about that and what it would look like. I think it'd be really interesting to know.
It's funny you mentioned that because I've had the same thought myself. It's just a matter of time, really. And at this point, it's kind of, well, maybe I should wait. I've got 7 years till I retire. Maybe I could tackle it then. But I definitely think that's something I'd rather see sooner than later. I think, again, it's flexibility and being able to support differences within the hobby while still bringing people together. Because, you think about it, we all have the tropes about, aircraft modelers and how they are, and armor modelers and car guys. I think that, in my mind, if you had individual, like I said before, guilds almost, like you had like a Gundam guild and a car guild and an armor guild, and with each of those, they had kind of their own way of doing things. When you go to a contest, potentially they'd have a way of doing it, but again, within a larger framework, there's certain things that the larger group would insist on, but other things that the group itself within the larger organization could decide, to give people a little bit of a stake, a little bit of buy-in, some feeling they have some skin in the game, where it's not necessarily the sometime seemingly mysterious NCC that's out there kind of controlling things behind the scenes, but rather, you've got this guild and you're involved with the guild because maybe you've got your own website and discussion group that's specific to your guild within the organization. And you guys kind of decide how some specific stuff for you works, that whether it's convention or whether it's how your discussion group is run or how you do local contests or online features, or even you guys want to have your own party or dinner at the big convention or whatever it is,
It's a really interesting idea. So rather than have one centralized committee that's in charge of every aspect of every category, maybe put together a group with, maybe you expand special interest groups, which I think in the UK, I think the special interest groups have a lot more of a role in IPMS from what I've been able to see than they do here in the US. So maybe take those special interest groups and break up the judging and the administration of the contest for those groups and then kind of coordinate those together. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think you could expand that idea of separate but united, if you want to think of it that way, to all different levels. It wouldn't necessarily be just we have our standards for what we want to do, but also, all right, guys, we're doing our thing. Let's, start getting some judges together for the big show, whatever it is. That's kind of, again, how AMPS does things sometimes is, prior to the big international convention they have every year, they'll send out a notice, hey guys, we need people to sign up to be judges and table captains and assistant chief judges, so here's the website, go sign up, and a lot of those guys get drafted or recruited the day of, but quite a few, maybe sometimes half or 2/3, on a good year, are already signed up beforehand. And that's probably easier to do the smaller you break that down. And if you have people who are already kind of knowing each other from online stuff and local events, and they already have that connection of their portion of the hobby they like. And of course, it wouldn't have to be just like you can only belong to the one. I mean, if you want to be in the Gundam Guild and the Airplane Guild and the Car Guild, you can do all three, and there's nothing that would, in my mind, prevent that. But I think we should definitely have to start playing into, there's so many different ways to build a model, and there's so different ways to build a model and make it look good. And we shouldn't discourage that. We should encourage that as much as possible. And sometimes when you get enough people in one category but one system of doing things, and again, this is just kind of specific to contests, that it can feel a little constrictive at times. And I know definitely from talking to guys who do like cars and stuff that they kind of feel that way towards IPMS, that it's not really feeding into like their own culture, as it were, within the car modeling. That's why a lot of guys I used to know that were really excellent car modelers would just skip the Nats and go to what used to be called the N&Ls. They go to the old N&L show because that was more geared towards the way they didn't have a system of judging first, second, and third. All they did was a series of special awards. And they had quite a few, but that's all they did. And it was just specific to how they like to do stuff. And I think if you can kind of bring people together and utilize those differences to make people more together as the whole, even though it sounds kind of counterintuitive, I think it's possible to do that, especially with the internet and Facebook and Instagram and all these different platforms that we have now to bring people together from all over the world. I feel like you really could make a truly international organization. And there's so many people out there with so much knowledge, not only about hobbies, but also just this guy knows a lot about PowerPoint presentations and media. And this guy knows a lot about, working with hotels, because professionally he does that. You'd have a huge base of talent, I think, to bring all these people together with their own love for scale modeling.
Yeah, and you also mentioned feedback, and that's something that I've heard a lot of, where I think especially with newer modelers, like I'm gonna use the Gundam group because that's a sizable group of new younger modelers that aren't engaging in large numbers with IPMS or AMPS. And the feedback that I get from a lot of them is, they spend a ton of time, pour their kind of heart and soul into a model, and they don't get good quality feedback.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about just the way the world is now, people expect something more now because it's become so much easier to provide it. And I think within scale modeling, we're kind of fooling ourselves if we think it's impossible to have a large convention, whether you want to call it a contest or a juried exhibition, doesn't really matter. You could do none of that and just have a gathering with displays. It doesn't really matter, but we're fooling ourselves if we think that it's not possible to make these things happen. And I think talking to friends of mine in the hobby, the feeling about at least IPMS anyway is that it's like, well, it's too hard. We can't do that. We can't change. There's too much to lose. We have too much at stake to lose if we try to make these changes. And I just think that's kind of a cop-out. You have to try. And even if it's small, I mean, it's something small, and I don't expect like overnight we've made this thing into an entirely different animal. That would be foolish to expect that as well. But to move forward and say, all right, well, clearly at least half the membership wants to do something different. We should start pushing towards something new. And, get feedback, get lots of information before you make any commitments, but small changes over time end up being a big change. And I think that's really what's required now.
Yeah, and you really hit it on the head there, David. What I'll be honest, one of the reasons I ran for office is because I'll be honest, I just got fed up with the constant pushback with a simple suggestion from the membership, and it was immediately met with, no, that's not going to work. We have our system. It's like, well, let time out. We can at least have this discussion. We can at least explore these ideas. As you've mentioned, with the advent of social media and communication methods, we're hearing a lot more from people that we typically didn't hear from in the past. And the membership is speaking. Like you said, half the membership, now I will say the voting, more people voted for 1, 2, 3 versus gold, silver, bronze than the actual e-board elections when that vote occurred 2 years ago. So I want to caution when people discount that is the membership that doesn't represent the membership. Well, less membership chose the people who are leading the organization. So I think it's important, like you said, we don't need to make a drastic change, but we can see that, hey, half the people that cared enough to show their self and raise their voice stated that they would like to explore a new system. That can at least kick off some sort of discussion. And I would say if people want to make that change, and again, another reason why I ran is I want to get more people involved. IPMS touts we are a society by modelers for modelers. And I agree, but the by modeler portion is smaller than the for model. It's just really small how many people actually bake the bread or, make the cookies at the end of the day. I would love to see, like you said, I didn't call them guilds, but I called them committees where, each major e-board has a subcommittee. And then as we look at the show itself, has a committee on the show experience, getting seminars, getting new genres in. How do we attract not only younger modelers, but, modelers from different genres that aren't typically at the national convention. Scott and I attended Colpar Hobby. We've mentioned it on our show. And the biggest category there was sci-fi, hands down. There were more sci-fi than every other category combined. And it's like, what are they doing? And then how can IPMS, replicate that draw for that genre of modeling?
For years, years ago, working in a hobby shop and just having been in IPMS and AMPS and internet presence in the hobby, just talking to people and listening, I can definitely say that it's not for any lack of people having an interest in the hobby. It's not dying at all, either from a manufacturing perspective or from an interest in people perspective. Because we used to get kids all the time 20 years ago in a hobby shop come in that I never would see at any contest, local or IPMS or anything. And they were really into cars, man. They would order all this stuff for car models, but it wasn't like classic dirt racers or NASCAR or hot rods. They were doing, slammed cars with D's on them and hydraulic kits and all, but that wasn't really what the scale modeling community was really into. So they didn't really feel that. So they just kind of had their own thing. But those kids spent a lot of money in the shop, and we bought stuff specifically because they were coming in. It had nothing to do with a model club. There's definitely plenty of people out there that could get involved. And I was judged locally, regionally, nationally. I wrote articles for the IPMS USA Journal a number of times. I was on the e-board locally for my clubs that I had here in Daytona and then later on in South Carolina when I lived there. So I was involved to an extent. And honestly, I didn't quit IPMS really at all. I just forgot to renew my membership because it just was the farthest thing from my mind. And literally I was walking to the mailbox thinking, I haven't seen an IPMS journal in a little while. Did I forget to renew my membership? Because that's kind of the point where I had gotten that I was kind of thinking, oh, do I want to rejoin or not? And it just kind of faded from my mind. And then when I finally realized and I found my old membership card, I was like, oh, crap, I didn't renew my membership. Meh, oh, well. And it didn't really impact me. Now, I wouldn't honestly have felt that way about AMPS because I still feel like I have something that I can give and get back from that organization still. I could very easily see that organization being in exactly the same spot that IPMS is at now. But I think because they're so much smaller and focused, it's maybe going to take a little bit longer potentially for them to kind of feel that impact.
So maybe they're kind of the equivalent of one of these guilds or special interest groups we've been talking about.
Because they're so focused. I think if you could bring in AMPS and you could bring in some Gundam club from Asia or whatever, as examples into a larger organization. Obviously not literally, but just kind of figuratively saying that. And I think if you did that, I think you would take advantage of both the differences and the unique flavor that each of these groups brings. I just think of how neat that would be if you had something like World Model Expo, where every 2 or 3 years you get all these groups together in a truly international show. And you've got the Gundam guys over here and the armor guys and the airplane guys and the car guys kind of doing their thing, but all coming together at the same time, laughing and joking and talking and looking at all the other models, but still having their own kind of personal, unique buy-in and flavor that they're adding to the event, but still supporting the whole. To me, I think that's my vision of what I think a really great, truly international scale modeling organization should be. And I don't think there's any reason we can't have that. And I think we absolutely should. Now, if there's individual stuff within each country, that's great, that absolutely should be. But I think just with the internet and podcasts and Facebook and Instagram, we should absolutely be taking advantage of that connectivity that's just waiting for somebody to take advantage of it. I think at this point, if you can ask the question, if we do this, will it bring in more people to the fold? If you can say yes, it's probably a good idea at this point.
David, you've brought up a lot of good points. And I think, one of the most important aspects to create an agent of change is just getting people motivated. And maybe I'm biased, but I think the podcasts have done a great job of that, within the last year, we had a lot of first timers at the nationals, and I'd like maybe to work with you. We can certainly do it offline. How do we leverage, social media influencers? How do we, bring people together and get them involved? Like you said, I think people want to get involved, and it's like, how do we cross that line and push them over the edge to like come to a show and then realize like, holy cow, this is the 4 best days of the hobby that I've ever had. Not because of the competition, but because of the people we've met and the things that we're doing. So, with all that, David, would you be interested in, helping IPMS evolve and change and attract, new modelers and maybe think of, how to do things differently? Would you be open to, joining a subcommittee? Sweet.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things actually you brought up a point before, David, and earlier in our conversation is, there are countless media, social media modelers out there, and it's actually kind of hard to keep track of them. One of the things that I've thought of is, can IPMS be that repository in a sense of cataloging these people down to genre, down to what platform they're on, just as a simple database for if someone is new getting into the hobby, they can go in there and see a consolidated list of publicly accessible hobby related material that they can take advantage of. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that could definitely be a component. I think about what you see out there right now on Facebook and Instagram, and when you're just kind of cruising around and you're looking at the models on there, what are you thinking? And I don't really, even when I think I still follow IPMS, but I really don't see very much on there. But again, it seems like it's a little slow to occur. I feel like we're not really taking advantage of what's out there right now. I think if IPMS just alone had a bigger presence, and not just here's a new kit review and stuff, but just a place where modelers could post stuff. There's so many groups out there that say, this is the advanced modelers group, or this is the scale modelers critique group and stuff. But there's something there that people are getting out of that. There's a reason why they're there. And primarily the reason is people showing off their models and getting feedback from people. And if IPMS does something just as simple as that, to say, hey, here's our new IPMS USA Facebook page, and this is what's going to be different about it, because we're going to be all about you guys posting your models, showing off your stuff, asking for feedback. If there's some way you can kind of harness that, I think that would be an avenue to make something like what you're talking about very practical and very useful to people. Because, man, I really like this group that IPMS has set up. Oh, somebody just mentioned something. Oh, I can go on this resource they have over here and look that guy up. It would be an excellent way to increase interactivity and connection between people. And to me, if I've learned anything, through this whole pandemic we've been in, I didn't know anything about podcasts before the pandemic. I'd never listened to one, but now I have several, not just scale modeling, but other stuff too. And you get that sense of community. There's so many people. It's like I've found through podcasts and Facebook and Instagram that I communicate with from time to time about the hobby. And if you find a way to make a page that does that, again, will that bring more people into the fold? And if it does, it's probably the right thing. If it doesn't, chuck it to the side and find something that does. But I think absolutely, if you have that resource, but it's got to be paired with something that brings people in and gives them an avenue to feel like they're part of something. And that's what podcasts have done. That's what Facebook and Instagram, they feel like they're a part of this group for feedback. They feel like they're a part of somebody's journey and modeling, and they can kind of participate in that and get good things out of that for themselves as well. It's all about being part of something. And that's really, I think, what we've really seen in the midst of this horrible pandemic is we've found a new way to come together that we kind of knew was there, but now it's really been highlighted by all these restrictions. And if we can take that and harness that towards real world activities when we actually meet face to face, again, if it's bringing more people in, it's probably the right idea.
Now you have me motivated. I think the biggest thing for these changes is just getting people to help. Like we've talked about, I think there's people out there willing to. Maybe they just need to be asked. So listeners, I guess be prepared to be asked at some point to help support this, because I think it's a great idea. I think, social media, for everything that's negative about it, I truly believe it is it is the biggest, single most important change the hobby has seen in the last 50 years. I don't care about kits or techniques or products, but, social media and having the ability to connect with your fellow modelers that prior to, 2004, maybe it was a, solitary hobby that you would connect at a show or, your local IPMS chapter. Social media has really changed the game. And I think it's the single greatest positive thing for the hobby.
Maybe IPMS needs a podcast.
Yeah, I ain't signing up to do that. I already got one.
or a portal where they engage with social media, where they have a podcast portal and they have a YouTube portal, because again, going back to the Gundam group, the demographics of that group is younger. They aren't going to give 2 cents for a magazine that comes in the mail. They just don't care. They don't consume that kind of media. But what they do care about is YouTube and, maybe TikTok. I mean, I don't want to get too crazy here, but, if that's what they respond to and that's how they get collaboration and how they interact with other people that do the same hobbies they do, I think a portal might be a great answer for that.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I would encourage our listeners, based on this conversation, feel free to write in, tell us your feedback. If you're a member of IPMS, why are you a member? If you're not, why? It's really important to gather this feedback and hopefully change for the better.
Well, that was a great discussion, John and David. That's awesome. What's great is that you guys are engaged in the hobby. You guys both make great contributions, and that was a lot of fun to talk. And John, obviously, we'll continue to support you in anything that you can do, and hopefully, we can make some great changes. So, David, kind of getting back to your modeling, how do you feel like modeling has impacted your life, either for the better or maybe for the worse? How has modeling helped you?
I mean, it's definitely for the better. I mean, obviously we all have our struggles when we want to throw something across the room from time to time and wish we hadn't even started it. But for me, I mean, occupationally, I'm an air traffic controller. I've been doing that. Actually, today is 19 years as of today that I've been doing air traffic.
Oh, wow.
And it's a weird job. Everybody thinks it's stressful, but to be honest, it's just weird more than it's stressful. And if there's a stressful part, it's my coworkers, because we're all type A personalities. We all have to have it our way. And there's always a lot of yelling and screaming. And if you hear like a tape of something, of an air traffic control, always sounds really calm. And that's what we say on frequency. But as soon as we unkey the mic, we're screaming at this guy or that guy or whatever. There's a lot of stuff going on in the background. I've had a lot of coworkers, they've really struggled over the years with that occupation. I mean, I have guys who have died, and and it's not as bad probably as people think, but there's definitely people who struggle with drugs and alcohol and mental health. And for me, having had family members that definitely struggle from that and seeing their struggles in me as well, having that output, that outlet that I can have to help deal with those struggles is been a huge blessing. It's been really just an amazing thing to have in my life, because there's definitely days when you come home and I've had a couple of times, I've had fatal accidents that, you have to kind of deal with, and someone didn't make it home. And thank God it wasn't my fault. I just happened to be there when it happened. That stuff can still weigh on you. There's definitely times, I have plenty of nightmares at night of planes crashing and going down in flames, and that's never pleasant, but having that outlet is great. And I know for me personally, and just the way my mind has always worked for as long as I can remember, is that I've always got multiple thought strands going on all the time. And modeling, the way I describe people, is modeling and going out and running. I'm also a big runner, and those two things are really the only two things that I have that quiet it down to just one thing. Just being able to focus and get rid of all the extraneous noise. I can sit at my desk for 2, 3, 4 hours and pop on some tunes or a podcast, and all I'm thinking about is how am I going to put this chain on this pistol port plug for this KV2, or how am I going to work these individual track links in during this build, or to sit there and space out. And it's really just a wonderful thing just to quiet everything down and to just kind of help deal with that stress. And some of that's just naturally there based on who I am, and some of it's job induced, or obviously just life induced. But just having modeling there is something just to focus on, just melts everything else away. And for me, that's just one of the things I'm most grateful for about the hobby.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. And, we talk on our podcast about there being no wrong way to do it. We all want to improve and get better, but, we continually kind of address that, there's nothing wrong with, struggling, and you should be having fun in this hobby. You should be, doing something that allows you to enjoy what you're doing, and not take it so seriously, because there's a lot of good that can come from it. And I really, really appreciate you sharing that with us. And, we talked earlier about, while you were building that T-34, saw you collaborate with a lot of people and answer a lot of questions. And I've often found for me that when I'm struggling and when I'm down, if I can help somebody, if it's just giving them a tip or whatever, if I can do something for somebody else, that just makes a lot of the things I'm going through so much easier to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, so it's part of that whole community aspect that I think has really, I feel like, is starting to come to light more now for any number of reasons, I guess. But I feel like at this point in time, there's a better scale modeling community with all the components. I mean, IPMS, AMPS, Facebook, Instagram, personal connections, everything. It just feels like the scale modeling community now is bigger and growing more now than it really feels like it ever has been in the time that I've been building scale models. And one of the great parts about that is you could have somebody that's a friend of yours that you've never even really met, but you just start communicating and discover you have a lot in common. And if you need somebody to rely on, they're there. That's somebody that you can talk to. And just having that kind of shared bond over this, great hobby that we have, it's incredibly important. And there's definitely, everybody has hard days. And when you have somebody that you can kind of, even if it's just talking about whatever you got to talk about, or getting out of that headspace and talking about something totally different and having that common ground that you can talk about, it's just immensely important.
I mean, John and I are a great example. I have always been a fan of John's modeling, and we asked him to be on our first podcast. And then, as you know, eventually asked him to be a part of the podcast. And I'll tell you that friendship that John and I have developed together means a lot to me. We call each other to talk models. We call each other to talk the podcast, but sometimes we call each other just to talk, if we're having a bad day. And that means, way more than a T-34 or a KV-1 or, whatever I'm working on at the time.
Yeah, for sure. I would definitely echo that. Some of my best friends I've met through this hobby, and I think my wife still wonders, how can you talk to so many people? Like, I don't understand. Like, for a solitary hobby, you're always texting people, and it's like, well, we have a pretty tight knit group chat that, it's just really fun. And this hobby has given us so much, and certainly helped me in times of struggle. So I zero complaints. Best hobby in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's tough sometimes to maintain that balance in life, and making sure mentally you're squared away and that everything's good, especially on those bad days. But having that thing to look forward to and having somebody to talk to and look forward to that is that in itself can save somebody. That in itself, just knowing that that's there, just waiting for you to just reach out and knowing that it's going to be there for you, that can be huge for somebody who's having a tough time. Yeah,
for sure. And, I've seen it on the opposite end too, where people take the hobby too seriously and cause undue stress. And it's like, bro, don't worry about buying the latest kit, pay the bills, or, don't worry about losing at a show on a Sunday. It's literally any given Sunday. So don't, try to find the joy in it.
There's always somebody better. I mean, again, as a controller, I'm definitely a type A personality, and I'm also just competitive in general. So I like to win. I'm not even going to try and sugarcoat that. So if I go to a contest, I definitely would love to win, but it's certainly not the end of the world if I don't. And I have definitely met some people over the years. I remember one nationals one year, there was a guy just walked up to me and said, "Hey, how's it going?" Yeah, he's like, "Yeah, you see that model there? Well, this wrong, and this is wrong, and this is wrong." And I'm like, "Okay, I don't know this guy." He's just he's just critiquing the hell out of this model. And there's somebody else standing next to me, and the guy kind of looks around me and says, "Yeah, well, what do you think, man? I think this and this and this." And the guy's like, "Well, actually, it's my model." And that shut that guy up real fast. But I'm like, why would you even do that, man? That kind of attitude gets nobody anything, And I didn't know either one of these guys. And I just kind of like, okay, see you
collateral
later.
damage.
Yeah, I just got caught in the middle, this really awkward situation. But I've seen that a few times. Unfortunately, it's not the most often that I see that, but it definitely does happen. But why would you even want to, man? I mean, you could definitely much more easily say, well, I really like what you did here, but have you ever thought about this? Or, man, check out this one over here. Man, I really had that, got done on that. I wish I could do that, and just kind of shift that conversation to be positive rather than negative. Yeah. But for some people, and I've had friends, you see them and it's one of those awkward moments where they're doing judging in the room while people are still in the room and somebody's just hovering with their arms crossed behind him. And that's been a friend of mine that did that. And I'm like, hey man, come over here for a second. Maybe you might enjoy this more if we don't hover over the judges while they're doing their job, because they've got to do it. And it's not going to do you any good to just sit there and just stew over all of it,
At the Nats, it's obvious I enter a lot of armor, but I also judge armor, and I refuse to judge a category that's even next to mine. I don't even want to be around when judges are, looking over, the category that I'm entered in, because as a judge, I don't want that happening to me. And it's just super awkward. And the worst, I've had people come up after I've judged a category and said, what's wrong with my model? It's like, time out. We haven't even given awards yet. But like you said, it's the exception, not the norm. I think on the other side, there's a lot of people. When we were at Nat, Scott, I look back to Vegas because we keep mentioning it, but some of the best times were walking around the contest room and just glowing from all of the inspiration that's on the table and taking away like, damn, this guy did this. Holy crap. Or a woman. That's the best part. That's
always the biggest thing for me is the inspiration, and even Facebook, Instagram. What I'm always looking for is what that moment. You see that model that hits that moment, and it's like, wow, that is cool. And just how they did this one thing here. I remember. I wish I could remember his name, but it's a fairly well-known modeler. But I was at a show in Atlanta, and he had a figure of a guy welding. But he had this tiny little LED at the end of the welder that make it look.
I think it was Kenneth Childers.
That might be right, yeah. And I saw that, and I was like, that's cool. It's
simple,
moments like that. It's just a little thing, but it's like, that's so cool. And I always try to aim for that in my own models. It's like, what can I do this time to maybe have, even if it's just something small, a small little moment where people are like, oh, wow, check that out. If you look a little bit deeper and you see, oh, that's really cool. Anytime I see that, I was like, that person's done something good. I don't care how good the rest of the model is. If they did that one thing, I'll give them credit. They're like, that's super cool that you're able to have that one little thing that inspires somebody. That's always the best.
Yeah. And like you said, that happens on social media too. And I would point, I had that moment when I saw Adam Wilder's massive, they called it the mouse killer, that ISU monster thing. And, I saw pictures of it being built, but he posted one picture where it's like a macro shot of the mantlet and the front glacis, and you can see the texture and the patina and all the different effects. And it's like, dang, that just brought it home for me and is just unbelievably inspirational.
Yeah, I think it was at the 05 Nats in Atlanta. There was a figure modeler that was in Tony Greenland's Panzer Modeling Masterclass thing. His name was Stefan Mueller, Herr Mertens, I think. And I didn't meet him, but he came all the way from Switzerland or Austria, wherever he was from, and he brought some of his figures, and I had seen them in the book. I was like, oh, that's really cool, but he had them in a little small vignette. And one of the figures I remember from the book was in this vignette, and on top of this like little outhouse was a cat. And the cat in 35th scale had whiskers. And I'm like, how is it even possible to put whiskers on a 35th scale cat? But it's stuff, you see stuff like that. There was another year they had a big, huge diorama of a B-17 going through its startup procedures. It's like an airfield in Britain, and it was all lit up, and you hit the button, and it had audio and lights, and the propeller started turning over, and you hear the engines firing up. And I was like, that is neat. It's stuff like that I go to contests for. Like, that made the trip worth it. That just to get pictures of that and get ideas. I made a Sturm Tiger one time, and I was going to do a full interior, and a guy in a club did an M109, and he had lit the interior. I was like, how did you do that? So I use these LED lighting kits from the model railroad industry. And I was like, oh, tell me more. And he did. And I was like, all right, cool. That's what I'm doing in my Storm Tiger. I'm going to find a way. I don't know how, but I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
And I did. And it's just those little moments of inspiration are what really, to me, are the payoff for going to those shows.
No, 100%. I mean, we witnessed that throughout the event at Vegas, especially, I'll be honest, the sci-fi category was the one I drew the most inspiration from. Seeing the scratch belt hammerhead, how he lit it, even how he took it apart to transport it in a carry-on bag. I mean, super, just unbelievable work. The figures there, just something, like you said, it's little things with each one. And that's something I need to get better about, not just making a plain Jane Panzer, but trying to tell a story through something unique, whether it's a different color or an object. Like, Adam Wilder talked about putting a green chair on his mouse killer, just, something like that to, just make you stop and think a little bit more. And Rinaldi talks about all the time, telling a story with effects and, asymmetric, weathering, things like that. I'm always intrigued about and always looking for at shows. And giant tarps on barrels.
Well, David, John and I are going to ask you now to pull out your crystal ball and polish it up.
Okay.
So the first thing I'm going to ask you is, what is the future for DB Scale Model Studio? Where do you see it kind of evolving and going in the next 4 or 5 years?
I kind of have this idea in my head that it's building for something. Again, I retire in 7 years. We can retire fairly young, I'd like to think anyway, as air traffic controllers. And I'd like it to be something more, whether that's towards some kind of new modeling organization or an outgrowth of what I'm already doing into like a blog or a channel or something. I've always thought the idea of writing a scale modeling book would be great. I think we talk about, the basics in modeling and stuff, and some people don't like that term, and there's debate about that. But I think, you don't know what you know until you know it. And there's a lot of people out there that they don't know that night shift's out there. They don't understand. Shep Payne wrote a book a long time ago. And I kind of think it's almost high time for just an all new book for beginners. And for me, it would mostly be military models. But what I think would be really cool, if I could pick anything, is kind of an outgrowth, is to take these people and connections that you meet and that you discover. And I think it would be really neat if you had a how-to book to guide people in military modeling from the basics to the master level stuff, with some notable people contributing. If you could get Mike Rinaldi and Adam Wilder and Martin Kovac and all these guys to write like a section of a book or contribute pictures, and you go back and look at that original Shep Payne book, Modeling Tanks and Military Vehicles, Steve Zalogo's got stuff in there. There's all kinds of big names in there. Francois Verlinden that just had a picture in that book. And it's like, not only they wrote an article, it's just, oh, wow, look at that, and it's like really cool. And you look back, I was like, wow, these were all big names. But back then, maybe not so much. They were not as big as Shep, but in their own right over time, they became that. So I think I personally feel like the time has come that we need something new. Now, what medium that would be, I don't know, because again, it is the 21st century, and I like print. I love magazines. Every new issue of Dioramag that comes out, I'm always buying that, because that's just a huge source of inspiration for me. I'd love to get more into dioramas and maybe focusing on that, maybe more in the future potentially, again, because of that storytelling potential that's there. I don't want to do big ones, but very focused ones that really focus your attention on a really emotionally impactful scene. So I guess I could say that either moving towards something more meaningful that gives back to the community, or focusing more maybe on story-related modeling, with maybe two directions I could see potentially going.
So that was really great, David. And, kind of to build on that, and a question we love to ask people is, what is your magnum opus build? Looking into the future, what is something, it can be anything. It can be simple as a figure or an elaborate diorama, but, before you hang up the sprue cutters and put the paintbrush away, what subject, what type of model that you would love to build, as a magnum opus?
Do I have to pick just one?
You got to pick one. I'm sorry.
Oh man. Oh,
you can you can lead off with your top choice. How about that?
As cliched as maybe as it is, I really love the Tiger tank, and there's a lot of stuff around. I feel there's both a lot of information and misinformation about it. And I've read about as much as I can, and I'm always trying to get new information. I just think from an engineering perspective, as well as actual battlefield history and propaganda, it's just a very, very interesting subject. And so I've pretty much collected all of the primary models of the Tiger now, including prototypes and everything. It's about 17 or 18 models, and I would love to build all of those. And I haven't decided whether either do it myself, or I think it would be really cool if you got like a modeling super group together and say, all right, here's everybody, I'll give you the kit, but we got to build all these Tigers, Mike Rinaldi, Adam Wilder, JB, myself, anybody.
Well, thank you.
Various levels of awesomeness, but still a really good group of guys that could do really knock out of the park this collection of Tigers, and then have it like at the Nationals or something, or some big venue, World Model Expo, something. We had this big group build of a lot of notable people building the highest possible level quality of a really iconic vehicle. I think that would be really cool.
Nice.
Yeah, that would be awesome. That'd be really, really, really cool. We all know the hobby's not dying. I mean, we have more choices than ever before. How do you think the hobby's going to continue to change? Where are we going to be in 5 or 10 years?
Ooh, man. It's funny to see how much things have changed just in the past 20. God, I mean, even now, if you think about, again, like those Dragon Tiger kits, when they came out, they were the top of the line, and that was 15, 16 years ago. And now there's stuff that's even better than those. So it's almost hard to imagine. I think it's 3D printing is definitely going to get to the point where not only is it easy for most nearly anybody to do it and produce stuff on their own, maybe not necessarily complex full kits, though that's obviously a potential, but that the quality of the print is going to be such that the fidelity is going to be even greater than it is now. And you're not going to have to worry about those lines from when things, get built at certain angles and things like that. I definitely think 3D printing is going to be a big part of the future, and just giving people a whole lot more choice of doing stuff. You used to be able to scratch build something if you wanted to do something really unusual, and I'm talking old school scratch building, not computer assisted scratch building, if you want to think about it that way. But I think both the CAD drafting tools and the print technology is going to be both more intuitive and more cost effective, to where I think that's going to be a much, much more viable option for most nearly anybody within the next probably 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, I agree. That's great insight. Well, David, can't wait to see that when you finish up that KV2 that you've been working on. It's a beautiful model as per always, and your work's been an inspiration for us. Thank you for stopping by. Loved your insights and your ideas for improving or changing some of the modeling organizations that are out there, and just appreciate talking to you. It's been everything I was hoping for.
Thanks for having me. It was great talking to you guys. It was a blast.
Yeah, it was fun, especially the early on bits, how we almost crossed paths a few times.
It's just missed each other by just a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah. And a special thank you too for, sharing what the hobby means to you and how it helps you as well. That message, it's important to us. I know you know that, but letting everybody know that we all get down, we all have bad days, and this hobby can be a force for good. So thank you for sharing that.
Sure thing.
All right. Well, take care, David, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Take care. Later.
All right. Take care.
Well, that was a really great interview. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and David is a really interesting guy and clearly passionate about the hobby. And it sounds like you and John had a really good time talking to him. But now it's time to move on to our discussion point. And I know JB had a solid gold discussion point for us. Unfortunately, he can't be here, so I'm going to try and steal this and try and be as eloquent as he would regarding this discussion. So, living up to expectations, leaving the world of social media and putting your work on the table. Proceed.
I'll start. I think it's really easy we've talked ad nauseum here on the podcast about the upside of social media is that we get this unbelievable, unprecedented amount of collaboration. We get to see what Martin does every single week and see, the modeling that he's doing. We get to see what Adam Wilder's working on, and on and on and on and on, what you guys do. And I think what's important is that as individual modelers, and I'll speak for myself, but I think it probably applies here. We can't be intimidated. We've got to look at the amazing work that we have access to as inspiration. And instead of saying my model has to be as good as Ivan's or Grant's, it has to be, I was inspired by Grant's model and Ivan's model, but this is my work and I'm going to share it in it, and not allow yourself to be intimidated in that way. And I think the other part of it is these get-togethers, and whether it's Telford or IPMS Nationals or your local club, I think the only way that those really help the community is if people participate. And we're always going to be our own worst critic. And so if we just sort of choose to leave our work at home and don't bring it, and I'll raise my hand. I've been guilty of this because it's easy to be intimidated, but you don't know. There might be somebody there that might be inspired by what you bring. We all see things a little bit differently, but I think it's really, really important to participate, support. And like I said, you never know. Maybe somebody ends up, being inspired by what you brought. I know that every time I see other people's work, no matter, what it is, and especially when you see it, Ivan, I think you made this comment earlier, in real life, maybe it was you, Grant, but when you see that work in real life, it always is different than on social media. The way, Ivan, that you see color, we've talked about, that build with the ambulance, the Model T ambulance, the way that you saw that color and executed that really, really inspired me. Grant, the purple that you did on the bust of Thanos, just beautiful, gorgeous purple, very, very inspiring. Doug's A-Wing that he brought out to Colorado and stuff, we can go on and on. JB's love of tricolor schemes, everything he does, and on and on and on. But the important point, the point I'm trying to make here is it's all really inspiring to me. I get a lot of value out of it. And then of course that spurs discussions that we get to have. So anyway, that's my answer. Support these shows, support these events, and don't be intimidated. Don't hold yourself to an unreasonable standard. Be proud of what you're doing and don't be hard on yourself, and bring your stuff. Anyway, Grant, what do you think about all that nonsense I just spewed?
Well, I agree with you. I think it starts with the small clubs, getting your stuff, and that's where you get your feet underneath you. And that's what I mean by that is by just putting your stuff on the table and having people look at it every month. It's not a contest. It's just your local meeting, and and seeing what people are bringing, and you show your stuff, and that's where you get your confidence. Now, like you said, Scott, you have the Rick Lauers, you have the night shift, you have all these fantastic Adams stuff is fantastic. All these people that do these fantastic things, but don't let that hold you back. The biggest thing is that you enjoy the hobby. Show us your stuff. I tell you what, if you go to a show and you're standing there looking at something and you find out the person that built that is standing right next to you and you ask them how they did it, 99% of that time, that person is going to say, hey, this is how I did it. And this is what I did. And you're going to learn something from this, especially in Nats. People like to talk, and I'm completely guilty of this. If someone asks me how I do it, I just go into a story about how I did it, and they probably want to get away from me and run away. But, it's to me, it's just about learning. And, part of that learning was putting my stuff on the table and understanding that some people are going to like it. Some people are not. One of the best compliments I've ever seen is from across the room. Someone was taking a picture of one of my models. That's all. That was massive for me. It's just things like that that give you the confidence that you need, and you'll enjoy it. You'll have fun. You'll learn. That's the key to all of this. I think, like DB said in his interview, we're here to help. We're not here to put anybody down. We're all here to help. And that's the key. If you see me, If you don't know who I am, come by the posse table and I'll introduce myself. If you want me to go look at your stuff with you, I will jump up from the table and run over there and do it. I'll be the first one with the piece, say, hey, let's go take a look at your stuff. And then we can talk about it. And if you ask for, some questions, I'll give you the best answers I can. And I'm sure, I'm not sure, I'm positive every single one of the posse would do the exact same thing. That's my opinion on it. What about you, Ivan?
Yeah, it's kind of like you both have mentioned, local shows or clubs. A couple of months ago was the first time I ever attended a local club. They originally weren't ever my thing. I wasn't that interested. Then I got to know a couple of people who attend, and they said, you know what, come down, I'll give you a lift, it'll be really cool. I did, and I've seen these guys work, and I can say it's Ben Smith and Darren McGuinness, both of them attend IPMS Lancashire. I've seen their work on the internet, looks brilliant on the internet. Then you see it in person at the club, it's like, wow. Although, yes, cameras have come a long way. Phone cameras have come a very, very long way. You can get beautiful pictures. I know Spencer Pollard, he's now doing a lot of his photographs with his new iPhone. But nothing, and I say this, nothing will ever beat seeing a model or vignette, composition, anything. Nothing will beat seeing that in person. I think, especially when it comes to dioramas or vignettes, yeah, cameras have depth, but they don't really pick up that dimensional depth, scene, scale like you do in person. And seeing stuff in person is just incredible. I love seeing work in person. And again, I'm going to mention another guy here, Ian Gaskell. He runs the MIG SIG in the UK. Builds lots of MIGs. I've seen them online. They look incredible. I helped him set up the table at Telford for the MIG SIG. Wow, his builds are so good, and you just don't appreciate them as much on the, you see them on the internet, they're great, but as soon as you see them in person, you have this whole new love and appreciation for people's builds. And I'm going to echo what Grant and Scott said. My first time at Nats, I'm bringing a couple of builds. If anyone wants to talk to me about my builds, I'll talk to them forever. I will not shut up. I don't get these people who make you sign NDAs before any modelling they've done. It's like, well, first, you've got to promise you're not going to tell anyone how I painted this aircraft, because if you do, I'm going to sue you.
And whatever you do, don't copy me.
Yeah, God. Look at
Model
this
NDAs.
Ivan, I'm really jealous because you get to see Spud, John Murphy, you get to see his work in person. You have so many great modelers over there that I hope to see their models someday. But, seeing, like we've been talking about, seeing Bryan Krieger in Colorado, seeing, his work, and, John Miller's aircraft up in Seattle. I mean, everywhere you go, it's just, you're right. Seeing that in person. I mean, hopefully if somebody's out there trying to decide if they want to go to Nats or if they want to go to Telford, go for this reason, because I think it really, the colors, the textures, everything in 3 dimensions is different than it is in 2 dimensions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's don't be scared. I know people can say, oh, I put it on the internet and then I can run away from the computer and pretend nothing was ever said about it. Be brave, stick it on a table. Let people enjoy it for what it is and talk to people about it. No one, well, I'd like to say no one, is going to come up to you at a show and say, yeah, that's shit. No one's going to do that. And if they do, then they don't belong in the hobby. It's as simple as that. Just, I'd want to say take the risk, but just put yourself out there. Put your work out there. Let people enjoy it.
Because I see it from the opposite direction. I am intimidated as heck especially in the group builds, because I know what I build and I see what everybody else is doing. And I feel completely out of place doing it. And yeah, I'll bring stuff. That doesn't mean I'm going to feel happy with it, because I am intimidated by it.
Seem to remember, Grant, wasn't there an A-wing in Colorado?
But that's not armor that I don't build. It's a totally different thing. Because I can do Star Wars, because I see, when I start a Star Wars model, I see exactly what I want to do. I start a tank and I see a tank. I have no idea how to make it what I want it to be.
Something I said when I was first interviewed by the Triple P is, regardless of if you think your work's good or it's amazing, skill level, you could be the best or the worst in the world, put it out there, because regardless of your level in the hobby to say, everyone has something to say and people want to hear it. So even if you think your work isn't up to a standard or our standard or whatever that is, I still want to hear what you have to think about the kit you've built or how you've weathered it. Everyone has something to say and I want to hear it.
I agree, Ivan. Doug, don't feel bad. I am definitely afraid to touch aircraft. I don't know what it is. I've built sci-fi. I've built tanks. I've built figures. You give me an airplane, I literally get scared because I don't know how you guys do it. I don't really know how you paint a cockpit completely up, put it in a thing, and then you got to start cleaning seam lines. And I don't know how you guys clean seam lines like that, because I've tried it and I get what do they call it, ghost lines or ghost, but it's a thing where I have to work on it myself, and I have to find my way through do I think it's good? No, but I'm going to say something very bad right now. I don't really find aircraft that interesting, to tell you the truth. I don't. And it's maybe because of my background or whatever. I was never really into planes as a kid, and I served in the Army, and I was a ground pounder and all that kind of stuff. I want to try it. I've got a P-38, and I've got, a couple other small little aircraft I want to try. I keep on hearing about these 1/72nd scale kits that Scott brought up earlier that are fantastic. And I want to try one of those, and I've got to get the nerve up. And I understand where you're coming from, Doug, 100%.
I think the thing to remember, though, is it's about the community. It's about getting together with other modelers, and there's no, at least there shouldn't be. There's no bar, No. I think, Doug, I've seen your tanks. Again, I'm gonna pick on my good friend Jim Bates, but I went up there and he had the 48 scale Churchill that he's recently put together, and he kind of handed it to me and said, take a look at this, and just really, really not happy with it, and tell me what I can do better, and I was looking at this piece and holding it and checking it out. And I just told him, just honestly, Jim, this is great. I think, kind of the feedback that you're giving me, it isn't this guy's model or it isn't that guy's model, but this is a really good model. And then the other thing is, I think that's how we learn, is by putting ourselves out there a little bit. I know I always learn from either making mistakes or learning by sort of on the job training, so this is my first attempt at, insert your technique, your chipping or whatever. And I know that the first time I do it, it isn't going to be as good as the 10th time I do it, or the 20th time I do it. Yeah. I think, again, we're our own worst critics. So what we think doesn't look as good as, whatever, to somebody else, it might look like an unattainable standard almost. It might look like better than anything that they've done. I think if our goals are to share and to learn and to get better, I think all those things can be accomplished if we put ourselves out there a little bit.
So that was a really good discussion on JB's point of leaving the world of social media behind. But there's something I want to lead on with, and that's a discussion of, if not now, then when? And I've been thinking about this because in my head, I've had the idea of a dream project of a full interior Panzer IV on a flat wagon on a rail car that's going over a bridge with water underneath it. So it's quite a big, in-depth scene. And then I got thinking, well, if you're not going to tackle that now, then when are you? Because you'll always find an excuse to put it off. It's something I see on social media. It's like, I'm not going to build my Tamiya 32nd scale Corsair. I'm not ready for that yet. I'll quickly work on this Earthix Spitfire. So, well, if you're not going to do it now, then when? And I just want to know you guys' thoughts on that sort of thought process.
I'll be the first one to try into this. I'm like you. I've got an idea of something big I want to build. 1973, Yom Kippur War up on the Golan Heights. You always see the pictures of all those T-62s and T-55s that the Syrians tried to rush across the fields there. And there's a big ditch, and they got the bridge layer part, or the part of the bridge laying off the side. There's a T-62 in there, and it's on the side. It's got that really cool swirl paint job on it. And I've always wanted to do something like that with 4 or 5, 1/35th scale tanks. And I've collected them, over the time, and I got what I need for it, but it just sits there. I've got to find that motivation, to do that. When? God, I hope soon. It's one of those things where you have this perfect image in your head too. And it kind of goes back to our last conversation about, you see these guys building stuff and you're trying to figure it out and trying to want to do it the best way, because this is a big thing. I've got to, and I'm going to call out TJ on this, because TJ builds fast and he builds quick and he does it right. And I got to get to that. I really admire TJ's work a lot. He does some fantastic things, and his To me, though, his biggest thing I admire the most about him is his work ethic on it. How he, sees a project, jumps on it, gets it done, he goes on. And that's what I need to get to. That's how I'm going to get to that when part of your question is, when I get that, I've got to get that mentality down of doing that. Because I don't know about you guys, but I have a problem when I start building. I start looking at pictures of stuff and I start saying, okay, well, I need to do this to this tank. I need to do this to this over here. I need to do this over here. And then I get completely lost. I dig myself such a deep hole that I fall. I can't get out. So I think I've got to put this Edwards set on here, and I've got to put this barrel on here, and these got to have these kind of tracks. And that's a problem I have with all my builds. I overthink it, I guess is the best way to say it. And until I work on that more personally, it's going to be a when. That's my idea. That's what I want to do. And jumping on a build, and you don't need metal barrels for all your tanks because most of them are slide molded anyway nowadays. So, they're perfect when they come out of the box. There's things that you just don't need. A good point of this is I don't know about you, Scott. I know you're building the M10, but the tracks for the M10 are beautiful. They're tight. US tanks had really tight tracks, and you're hiding, half of them are hid up underneath the tank anyway. Would I get different tracks for that? Me personally, unless I was going for like a very big metal somewhere, I would put metal tracks on it, but I think they look good the way they are. That's what that's how I feel about it.
I think we've identified a couple different things here. I think, Ivan, to your original point, I'm guilty of having models in my stash, Bandai Perfect Grade Falcon, Tamiya 32nd scale Wonder aircraft kits, where I'm intimidated and I don't want to start because I don't think I'm good enough. And I think that's something that needs to be overcome. But then we also kind of talked about maybe a project like Grant talked about scope, like something that's large or Ivan, where you've got equipment on equipment on equipment. And I think that goes to something that I've been thinking a lot about lately, which is I tend to get bogged down in things, overthink things like most of us do. And I think my idea is I want to start creating project plans and break these projects into little bite-sized pieces so that when I am working on my bench, instead of just sitting down and just getting completely overwhelmed and lost, I can say, no, that's okay. I'll work on steps 24, 25, and 26 and actually, make some forward momentum on that. And I really think for me, I can't speak for anybody else. That's really, really important because, my modeling time is scarce and I haven't been that productive. And I think if I do that, then I'm hoping the result will be more momentum. And the more momentum I have, hopefully maybe that builds on itself and I can get some of these large projects that I do have in my stash and feel confident in putting them on there and bringing them across the finish line. Doug, what do you think about this?
Well, when it comes to intimidating kits, I'll start there because as far as expanding on the kits, it's even deeper for me. But you mentioned the Perfect Grade Falcon. And so when I started mine, of course, I haven't worked on it in 6 months, but I started it. I actually just kind of said, I'm going to do this. And I sat down and I started cutting parts off that sprue. And that was the motivator to get me running. The kit isn't really intimidating. It's just, you just have to know you're going to be putting a ton of time in and on. It was like the other night, I didn't want to work on anything. I've got these kits that I'm trying to get across the finish line for Nats. So what did I do? I was going to just sit upstairs and watch, reruns of Community or something. And instead I just said, I'm going to get this little step done on that Skyhawk. And then I did 3 more steps after that because I went down and I started it. And I think with any kit, any project, if you just put yourself in the mindset and do it, just like entering in a contest, just do it. Yeah, you might have a bunch of kits that are intimidating. You don't want to do any of them. Just pick one and do it. Just say, I'm going to do one of these and I'm going to see what I can do with it.
I mean, Doug, that's awesome. I needed to hear that. But have any of you tried like doing a project plan, like kind of formally like writing it out and breaking that up? Or, is that just something that maybe I'm wasting my time with?
Never. That's usually kind of where my problems start. I'm kind of a textbook overthinker. Yeah, I don't overthink or plan enough into my hobby. I'll overthink stuff like, oh no, what if the cereal I have in the morning isn't crunchy enough? But yet I won't plan ahead or give enough thought into what I should be doing in the hobby room. And that's usually where my problems lie, because then I spend too much time thinking and not enough time working, rather than just cracking on with stuff.
Well, first of all, I would say put your milk in right before you eat your cereal. So it's still crunchy. That's where I would start.
Noted.
I don't know if you would count it as a project plan, but about 4 years ago, when I really wanted to get back into figure painting, and I had been out for a long time. So I made basically a bet with myself that for an entire year, 12 months, I would paint and base a figure a month. Didn't matter what scale, didn't matter what, and I wrote it down, and went out and bought 12 little bases, plinths, whatever you want to call them. On the bottom of them, I wrote the month and it had to be done. And I found myself this month, I would write down, I'm going to build this figure. It wasn't much of a plan, but that did help me. And I did succeed in that. And it was very, gratifying to do that. I have a weird habit, and I picked it up a long time ago, that I have a tendency to write stuff down a lot. But at the end of the day, if I've been modeling for a long time, I'll write down, I did this, and this today. I don't know why I do it, but I do it. I've got a little notebook sitting on the side of my desk. So I know if I can't finish something, where I left off on a step. So if I weathered this part, this is the paint. It takes like 5 minutes, and I weathered this, I did this, I did this.
That's fascinating. You bring up the journaling aspect of it. I have a really good friend, Josh Buck. Actually, he's one of our Patreon supporters. Hey, Josh. But we'll get together usually every Tuesday night over at his place and do some modeling, and he journals everything. And he was showing me his journals, and that's great because he'll have projects like most of us tend to do that go on for months or years, but he can pull out that journal and he can see, I used AK Real Colors number 74 for the green, and he has all that information, and he, so that when he comes back to it, he's not kind of tripping himself up. And that isn't kind of what I was intending, but I can see sort of the proactive side and then also the historical side of writing things down and breaking things up into pieces. I think there might be great value in that for me, and maybe that's an approach to try.
It is. I mean, and I do it with figures a lot because I have way too many different kinds of paints, and I'll lose, if I'm looking for a certain purple that I know turns out great, or a certain green color mix I like, I'll write it down in the journal and say, or it's just, I guess it's a journal. I don't write down there, I like oceans views and stuff like that, but I write down some other stuff. I do because I like Citadel paints, and Citadel paints, sometimes they can be very wonky if you don't get the right mix just right. So I found that if I write it down, it's better for me. It's not a plan going forward, but that's what I do.
One thing I can say about the project I've got in mind and why I've not done it yet, or the excuse for why I've not done it yet, is because I'll always think, one, my scratch building isn't up to par yet, because I need to scratch build the bridge and the landscape. So I'm going to think, well, not good enough at that yet, so I'll wait till I'm better, whilst not actually doing any more scratch building because I think I'm not good enough to do scratch building, so I make no progress whatsoever. And two is, but I need metal tracks for the Panzer, I need a metal barrel, but then I don't have the right resin figures for it, and it's like, an excuse is like, but you need to buy all this stuff, and you haven't got the money for it yet, so why don't you just wait until you've got the money and ordered that stuff?
Ivan, you're pretty fascinating to watch, because I've noticed that you'll get a project and you'll give a start, you'll open the box and you'll crack on, and then inevitably you'll stop, and sometimes it'll stay there for weeks or months or whatever, but then you'll hit these surges, and I mean you're almost TJ like where you'll just incredible, like that M114 is a great example. I mean, you'll just take something and bam, I mean, you just really power through it. And so, part of me wonders if your comment about overthinking maybe isn't that, because when you're at it, you're as productive as anybody I know.
I'll have these moments of absolute procrastination and then absolute determination to get a lot of work done. And it's just in blips. And it's really frustrating because when I'm doing nothing, all I'll think about is wanting to do said project. And then when I'm doing it, I'm loving it, but it only comes in short bursts and it's really frustrating. And yet for some reason, I can't control that sat in front of the computer rather than turning to my left and doing some work. And it's extremely tiresome.
You know, another thing that Doug mentioned, and I've seen in some of his work, is using the power of sub-assemblies. Like when he started on his perfect grade Falcon, he took a mandible. Is that what that's called, Doug? I think.
Yeah.
The mandible assembly, and he put that together on his B-wing. He did his B-wing sort of in sub-assemblies. And I think that's something I need to do more often, rather than, you know, just sort of looking at the project as a whole. Maybe if I'm doing a tank, maybe focus on the turret, or, you know, working in those small sub-assemblies and then bringing those all together maybe at the end and using that style of a flow rather than just approaching the entire build, you know, straight off the instructions. What do you guys think about that?
I think it's a great idea. You know, I always kind of save the tracks for last for me when I have length and length or length and length, because it's the hardest thing for me to keep them straight, get everything lined up. So I'll build the turret first, or the chassis first, and do what I have to do, and then jump into that last thing. But I think the stage building is a fantastic idea. It helps me. I know that.
I use it whenever I can, especially on the Star Wars kits, like the B-wing, especially the perfect grade Falcon's a great example of that. Especially the way those assemble, it makes it really easy to sub-assemble and then put it together. Paint it all, get it all ready, and then put it all together. Some kits, it's just not going to work that way, especially if you're going to have a lot of sanding and stuff. That's going to be difficult. But if you can do it in sub-assemblies, that's, to me, especially when there's contrasting paint, when there's changes in panel lines, and you can paint that separately and not have to mask off something to make it work. Just do it that way.
What about vignettes and dioramas, Ivan? Like in your ambulance build, I mean, it seemed like the vehicle was pretty straightforward, but what about the scenery and buildings and things like that? Is it kind of the same, or is that a little bit different?
Yeah, that bit different. Like the scene was absolutely not planned. It isn't what I had in mind. I looked at that ambulance. I tried to look for reference pictures of the actual ambulance during that period in French service. And what I've seen is basically just a flat road with bits of rubble at either side, or just completely leveled, not forests, but tree lines. There's no trees left, just stumps left. And I thought, they're cool, but a bit boring. Then Night Shift released that video of how he built a barn. His first time scratch building a barn, and it's the most incredible piece you'll ever see. So I followed that. I didn't copy it. I just looked at the techniques he used and applied them to my own original piece. I said, yeah, that looks cool. Stuck it on the base. And I was like, ambulance can go next to that. That'd look quite cool. Made a muddy road, and voila. A base from absolute nowhere that took no planning. It was a complete spontaneous amalgamation of bits of foam.
Yeah, I just wonder, that's pretty interesting, because, you know, when you're building a kit, there's a little bit of built-in sequencing, right? You've got instructions and steps and, you know, things like that to kind of, I guess, keep you on track. But when you're doing things and they're scratch built, or there is no roadmap, you're sort of, you know, using random inspiration, then that's a whole different scenario where, you know, sometimes just getting the idea or the concept takes some time.
Yeah, absolutely. For a long time, once the ambulance were done, I had absolutely no idea what it was going to do. Because it needed to be on a base, but I had absolutely no idea what I was going to do. And it just one of those happy accidents that turned out really well, I think. I'm trying to do it now, and I've been trying to do it for the past couple of weeks, and it's not working. I'm
wondering if maybe a vignette is something that I ought to look at trying when this Nats is all over. The last time I tried any kind of a diorama was probably 1983, and I tried to simulate the ground. I took a little piece of plywood, and I probably mixed like my mom's flour with water to try to make a muddy surface, and, you know, stuck the tank in one spot and then moved it a couple inches so you left track marks behind it. That would have been my attempt at a diorama. Obviously, there's a lot more information out there for me now that's easy to access. Maybe I ought to give that a try.
They're so fun. They're so fun to do. And they can take what is a very nice built model, completely transform it into, it's like, whoa, there's a story. You can see a visual atmosphere or feeling or whatever, and it just brings the model to life. Especially if you put a little figure next to it, it really adds that sense of scale and humanness to what you've created.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you know, it's something that I know when I do or vignettes, I never really build a big diorama or anything like that, but I've done vignettes. I always have this idea in my head, and I said, I'm going to build this. And then it always ends up being 180 from that idea that I started out with. So I was going to, you know, I built a Jeep for nationals last year, a little vignette. I made the building front and everything like that, and a Jeep, and there were some guys standing out in front of it. It was the Ardennes in December 15th, the day before the Battle of the Bulge took off. And there were some officers standing out front, and they're like looking down the road, and there's like something's wrong, basically. And, and that started off as a Jeep in North Africa. It's so, you get these little ideas that come implanted in your head, and it's so fun. To me, it's relaxing. That's why I like to convert vehicles as much as I do, because I like the change. It's different. You scratch built a pickup truck on the back of a Kuba wagon because, you saw a picture. So, instead of building another Kuba wagon, you make a truck out of it in 1946 that was cleaning up all the rubble from all the bombing. So, stuff like that keeps me going, and some of the stuff out there that you see is phenomenal. The storytelling, and I'm always going to fall back into, figures, 28 millimeter and stuff like that. You've got fantastic builders out there that are doing some immaculate work that just beyond quality. If you see some of the videos from World Model Expo right now, you'll see some fantastic figures, and that's where I want to get. But I'm where I'm at right now, so I'll do what I do.
Yeah, just going back to something you said there about you had one thing in mind and it completely changed. That 3-ton ICM truck was not supposed to be in North Africa. Jamie, who works for Ammo, he said, do that scheme, it looks cool. The scheme it's in is actually for Italy. The only reason it's not in an Italian setting, which I actually had in mind, which would have looked really cool, is I didn't have an Italian German officer or any Italian figures. So it was like, well, I've got African ones and it could pass for Africa. So we just went with that. It's weird how these little detours happen and they can work out for the best.
You mentioned the changing as you start. You turn 180 on what you're doing, what your plan was. Do you ever have that happen? I mean, you're sitting at your bench and you're working on something, maybe you're painting something and you want to do a certain thing. And I don't know if it's inspiration or what, but you just say, you know what, I'm going to paint this way. I'm just going to, I just grab a different paint and I go a different direction with the paint scheme or something. And a lot of times it comes out with a very, very good result.
Oh, I do. I don't know about the others, but you're Doug, you're 100% right. I've been sitting at tables working on something and I said, what about this? And just say, excuse my language, but screw it and change up, just go 180. And most of the time, Doug, you're right. It's better, it's better than what you thought it was going to be, or better what and you like, it's sometimes you just have to listen to that inner voice. Not sometimes, you should always listen to your inner voice. But it's going to lead you the right way because it's going to lead you to your skills that you know the best. I know a lot of modelers out there that they do that a lot. So.
Yeah, I've done this once, and I say wrong. I was building the Trumpeter Furry Firefly, which is, everyone says, it's not accurate to the shape of a fire. I don't care. It actually builds up really nice. It's a great kit and it goes together well. And I know our friend Jim has one to build. He's going to love that kit. It's fantastic. The scheme I did on it is supposed to be that dark green and slate grey we see for Navy aircraft and Fleet Air Arms aircraft. And I think it's just such a hideous paint scheme. I think it's just because the colours are so murky and non-contrasting. And I get why it's Navy and Fleet Air Arms. But I was like, I'm not painting it accurate at all. So I went with the ocean grey and green because I think it's just gorgeous. So it's completely inaccurately painted, but I did it the way I wanted it and I absolutely loved it, regardless of how many people told me I was wrong about it. It's like, yeah, but I like how it looks. And that's that.
That's one of the reasons why I'm a science fiction modeler. Don't do enough of it, really should do more. But yeah, it's sometimes that freedom to do, like Doug, what you were saying, and Ivan, what you're saying, where you want to just change something. And I did an X-Wing a while ago and decided the world didn't need another Red 5. And so did a sort of semi-canon scheme based on the Rebels cartoon and use some personal interpretation and mix my own colors. And it was a lot of fun. So it's really a lot of fun to do that sometimes.
So thanks for that, guys. That was a really interesting discussion, and it was something I wanted to talk to you all about for quite a while. But now I want to hear from all of you that are listening. We really want to hear about your if not now, then when sort of situation. So please post on the Plastic Posse Facebook group. We would absolutely love to hear what you think about the matter and how you perceive the hobby. If I'm not going to do it now, then when am I? So we'd love to hear about your story. Right, so I think we should talk about Nats, since it is, as we speak, 17 days, 21 hours, and 40 minutes away. So, guys...
Not that anyone's keeping track.
No, just off the top of my head. So just a reminder to everyone who doesn't already know, it is on the 20th till the 23rd of July 2022 in La Vista, 12520 Westport Parkway, Nebraska. Just in case you needed the address, you are going to have to find it. Question I want to ask all of you, are you ready?
God, no.
Heck no.
But I definitely will be. I mean, as you're traveling to meet up with TJ, Jim Bates will be coming down from Seattle, and then Doug and Jim and I will be heading over to meet up with you guys up in the Rocky Mountains, which I think is gonna blow your mind a little bit, Ivan. But man, we got friends from all over the country coming, and from Australia and the UK. Grant, we're gonna miss you in Denver, but we'll definitely see you in Omaha. So we will be ready, but I am definitely not ready as we speak.
When we leave, I will be as ready as I'm gonna be, but I probably won't be completely ready. I'll just go.
I'm with Scott and Doug there. You know, JB mentioned in his last briefing that he wants to smell a lot of off-gassing of models in the room, and just come stand by my hotel room because it's going to be like off-gassing central because it's going to be. That kind of sounded bad. But yeah, it's going to be it's going to be some interesting stuff, and just getting, I'm more nervous about sitting at the table with you guys and talking to people as they come up and all that kind of stuff than I am about the show itself, to tell you the truth. And we've got, we put it out there today that we got a great little location. We're right next to Ivan and JB and TJ with the ammo stuff. And we've got value gear right there. And we've got, we got everybody right there. We have Edward right across the aisle from me. Yes, that's going to be bad. And Steve Baker, Mr. Steve Baker, have already said that, if he gets to us, he's going to be poor because he's gone through the Edward station. What's bad for me is right down the same aisle we're on, I think, or one aisle up is bases from Bill. That guy does some great stuff too. And there's I can't remember the name of the individual, but there's a reference section right there too. And I'm just going to be poor. I'm going to, just buy some Spam and a whole bunch of ramen noodles before I go, and then just sit it here. So I come home, my wife can yell at me, but I'll have like 90 books and, Edward kits for stuff I don't have yet. And I'll have 1,000 bags from, value gear. So I'll be happy.
Poor Ivan, before he even hits what will be the largest model shop in the United States for 3 or 4 days. I mean, you should see the stack of stuff I'm bringing for him. And I know, I've got, I think, a half a dozen kits or something, and, let alone all of the food items. And, and JB hasn't even hit him into one truck stop yet. So, no. I mean, Ivan's going to need an ocean-going crate, a trunk or something to, ship back on an ocean freighter by the time he's done.
It'll be worth it.
Yeah, I was on the phone with the owner of Tankcraft the other night, kind of talking, and he, Ivan, he's very cognizant that your bench needs a new Tankcraft mat. So I'm
glad he thinks that, because
I think
I do need one.
Get you taken care of. No, it's going to be great. Like you said, Grant, we're in an awesome corner. Some of the guys, you guys will be doing the MiG ammo demonstrations. We'll have Plastic Posse swag. We'll have Tankcraft stuff on display. We will be giving things away. Grant is a very handsome man. He'll be happy to sign autographs. TJ does charge, just so that everybody knows. I mean, he has an agent. So, but I think the rest of us are, I think we're free.
Oh, we also have business cards now, people. So don't be too, we're like professional.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So watch out now. We have business cards. We have keychains. We have stickers. We have everything that a grown or juvenile, or both of those together, model will need.
Mostly juvenile.
Mostly juvenile.
Unfortunately, JB's had a certain other sticker printed.
Yes.
That I do not wish to see. Which I imagine I'm going to see everywhere. The thing is, that's just what he showed me. I'm terrified about the stuff he hasn't.
Yeah. I will guarantee you, Ivan, that there, like JB said, there will be a care package waiting for you on your bed when you get to Colorado.
Ugh.
And I want pictures. I need pictures because I could not find a white crayon costume for you. But there, trust me, I'm dealing with the same thing every time we post something. Everybody asks me when's my Bayberry tank going to come out. So don't worry about it.
It's weird. First trip to the US. It's weird how calm I am about it because obviously I've never met any of you and the 6,000 other people who are going to be turning up at John's house, and yet something like that would absolutely terrify me. And yet I just can't wait. I'm like, I wish I actually had the flights a few days earlier, but I'm buzzing. I can't wait.
Well, we've got as we've heard, we've got a great schedule for you. You're going to be exhausted, but it's going to be worth it. You'll make enough memories to last for a really, really long time. And then
Texas.
Yeah, exactly. But, in the meantime, if JB hazes you too bad, you get a chance to turn the tables on him in the fall.
Oh, yeah. If there's one place you don't want to look stupid, it's Scale Model World. So I'm going to have to do some planning.
Well, I'm actually interested to see your guys' demos. That's going to be fun. That's going to be really interesting. And your guys' talk too, your brief.
Yeah.
So that's going to be fun. And, that's what I go for, is to see that stuff, and it's going to be interesting to see your take on the modeling. That's going to be interesting to me. So I can't wait.
That's a good point. And hanging out with the other podcasters, our friends from Australia are going to be there, which is really, really great. And, the Mojo guys and the geeks. And, it'll be nonstop. I mean, Vegas was literally a whirlwind. You can hit the ground running and the next thing you know, it's over. You're just like, wow.
It's going to be neat to meet all the people again, people that talked to online for so long and never seen, and meet them and say hi and just be able to put that, the recognition face to the name kind of thing. And I can't wait to see what shows up on the tables. What does the Nationals bring us this year? What crazy, fantastic, massive, tiny, thing is going to be there. There was Babel Young from my part of the woods out here brought his hammerhead to NAS last year. And it was phenomenal. There was, I don't know what scale that one ship was in, but it was a destroyer class that was just took up a whole table by itself. It was massive and it was beautiful, and there was some 1/72nd scale aircraft that were just to die for. And the cars, some of the cars there were just the paint jobs. You could it looked like butter. You could put your finger in it and just go right through it. So that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, that hover Camaro last year in Vegas that the guy had built. I mean, just John Everett's dinosaur that you can go on and on and on, but it's going to be amazing. And Ivan, you'll love every second of it.
I just hope nobody takes offense when they come and say hi to me and I don't recognize them right away, because look, I met so many people last year. And if I don't remember your face, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. But
Grant, did you get that roll of stickers that said "Hi, my name is Doug" yet?
Yes, yeah, I got them. Okay. And Doug spelled backwards, so they were good.
Squad.
Please introduce yourself.
Yeah,
this is a thing I've had at Scale Model World. Tons of people coming up to me, having the conversation for about 20 minutes, and there's like, right, see ya, and I'm like, I have no idea who that was. And it's not for being rude's sake. It's just faces on the internet. It helps. And another thing, it's going to be nice to have this Nats. I know you had the last one unmasked and with hopefully the fullest attendance. Because another one in Vegas, obviously a lot of people may not have attended because it was still a bit COVID-y, but it's
Is that a word?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Czechoslovakian jug just gave me the thumbs up and said, "Yep, he's good."
COVID-y. Okay.
Big COVID-y.
You're going to find that in the Oxford Dictionary.
It's just going to be a whale of a time. And JB sent me an album from the last Omaha, and it just looks like an absolute superb venue.
All right, guys. Well, I think that's about all for episode 49. Thanks for listening to the four of us. We missed TJ and JB, but hopefully they'll be back soon. Programming note, we will be skipping episode 50 as there's just no way we're all getting ready for Nat. Some of us are going to be obviously traveling. Plan on doing some kind of a live stream, and we'll put details on that on the Facebook page. And then during Nat's, we'll be doing live streams throughout. So keep your eye on our social media outlets, our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. Remember, please stop by our table. We'll be in the vendor room. Say hi, and you're going to want to stop and see JB, Ivan, and TJ doing their demos. Just, come say hi. It's going to be great. The same thing in the contest room. If you run into us, the group build, we're hoping to just kind of grab all the tables and fill them up with Shermans, Grants, and Lees. So we'll be doing that. Thanks again for joining us. Remember to send us your feedback, suggestions, and any corrections to Ivan's English to our email, which is, of course, plasticpossepodcast@gmail.com. Remember, anybody that's traveling to Nats, saddle up and travel carefully. And remember, spend some time at your bench. Thanks for listening, y'all.
Gotta say yeehaw.
He's not doing it. It ain't happening.
We gonna mix it up.
Varmints.
3,
We got critters in these parts.
2.
Ian asked me to send him a voice note so he could show it his wife, and I did. So if anyone would like an accent request, I'm available. Just send me a message. I'll send you a voice note. It costs nothing but my dignity.
I'll tell
Don't even
you when you're walking around Omaha in that crayon costume, and I mean we'll just give you ibuprofen with every meal, and then you'll be good.
It'll take a lot more than that to get me in that costume.
I've got some really, really good anti-anxiety pills that you can take, so don't worry about it.
You just slip him some Xanax or something.
We got to look at schedules because Ivan will be flying.
Yeah,
which is awesome. It's finally.
I believe that's that's less than
here.
2 weeks, Ivan.
I know.
You're going to be in Virginia.
Yes, in 11 days.
Wow.
Oh man!
Wow.
Yeah.
And I'm not even worried about the flights so much anymore because Aer Lingus flights. I've checked the status every day for 2 weeks. The latest one's left is 20 minutes. I'm not concerned.
So what do you tell people when they say, this is your first trip to the States, right? And you say, where are you going? You're going to Omaha.
I'm not going to lie. But in all fairness, a lot of people say, isn't that in France? I was like, no, you're thinking of something completely different.
You're going to feel pretty comfortable, I think, in Breckenridge.
Yeah.
I think you're going to say, I think I'm all right here.
Yeah.
I'm not leaving.
Until you try and buy some water. It's like $17, but it's okay.
Well, but we can bring that in a cooler, so
yeah, that's good.
Let's talk Nats. God, that sounded flat. Jesus, I should act as Anakin Skywalker, Christ. The thing is, he's a great actor, but Christ, he was told to play that role really flat, weren't he? You underestimate my power. Oh, I'm terrified, thank you.
Yeah,
but then again,
well, that could be said of most of the prequels. Just underwhelming direction.
I do love from the Obi-Wan series the Grand Inquisitor when he comes back. He's just like, "Hello." My favorite line of the entire series. Shit, right? Sorry, yeah. Back to it.